Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This time for the grand final. As they mentioned, the best of 7 is waiting for us. Tomorrow, the second best of 7. And if that's not enough, the tiebreaker will be played next Saturday as a best of 9. Let's see if the teams allow that to happen, or if Elysium or Invictus here say we're gonna take a clean 2-0. You can set yourself up all nice and ready today, but the Singularity is legendary at this point for his difficult area defense. Speaking from the survivor POV, he can really lock down the 3-gen. He can trap you here forever. I saw a few people saying earlier they go to the bathroom now in case this is going to be a long trial. But Nightlight looks like he doesn't intend to make this a long one. That's a 2-tap onto Xeno Egdar. That's a crazy start into the Grand.
That's an insane first down. That came through so unbelievably quickly. 46 seconds, the fastest Singularity down ever. We're used to seeing in these sets first downs not coming out till what, like the 15-minute mark, 20-minute mark, something ridiculous like that. Nightlight has just set the tempo of this game and has set it up early. This build that he's running, it's something of a hybrid build here. He's not hard committing to the 3-gen, but he still has tools like Mindbreaker and Oppression to help defend it should things go awry. So it's not quite fully committing to the chase, it's not quite fully committing to the gen control. He's trying to be a jack of all trades here, and he's actually going to try and mind game the main building. Very careful there, but Xeno not going to be falling for those shenanigans anytime soon. Rapid Brutality also on as well, helps combine with the overclock mode to allow them to catch up as fast as humanly possible. Nightlight not able to get the shot through the window and not going to choose to break the door on that main building anyway. Instead, it's just going to brute force Xeno into the corner. Barring a hit tank here, this down should be coming through relatively quickly, but Pedro is here for said hit tank. Now Nightlight is going to have to return pressure back to the generators because Xeno was your mark, you weren't quite able to hit it.
But it seems like he doesn't actually want to give it up. We'll see how high the price for that will be. Understandable that he really wants to get Xeno here, but crazy work and counterplay by Elysium. We're going to take a short little kick here onto the generator oppression coming out there. And back to the gallows area we go. Now it's definitely understandable. Nightlight wants to lock down the 3-gen over here that he has in this area, but it is a huge pullback already from the 2-tap at the beginning of the game into basically giving up on Xeno and being forced to go back to the gens, and now also quite some downtime, right? No one in a chase right now, no one taking an injury, anything like this. Elysium mastering the quickest 180 in history.
Yeah, you go down as fast, but you get to pick yourself up just as quickly. You have to play pretty methodically oftentimes against Singularity. Simply, his snowball potential is obscene. For a killer which can't actually expose an insta-down you, it sure as hell feels like he can most of the time. So he's going to be setting up his network, his little web of cameras to try and find all the survivors, but they're just going to keep EMPing them. And that seems good for the survivors, but that does slow them down even more, because the one thing that they do not want to do is work on any of these topside gens while they are slipstreamed, especially with the family photo in play, where they can just get hindered and deep wounded when they keep getting hit with those biopods. It's a pretty tough time regardless. Now we can see we found someone by main building, but we're actually going to swap focus just as quickly as he arrived there. Nightlight's going to move back to the other side of the map. Oscar found, tagged with the injury, not making use of the rapid brutality, instead just trying to hit and run here. Xeno, you found him already. See if you can get him again. What? Huh? Excuse me?
Nah. Xeno taking such an unfortunate hit here into the back. Unfortunately, not the... I mean, it was a medium vault. You can be punished for that, but it still looked super disgusting. unfortunate for Elysium. That will be a little bit of a setback you need to recover from here, basically. But they're still doing a good job. No elimination just yet. Pressure on the generators is rising 75% over here on this generator. Unfortunately, a bit close to the hooked survivor, but off we go again with the Xeno being grabbed off the hook. Perfect teleport from Nightlight though, making sure that he immediately receives the deep wound there. And then checking again. You really want to lock down this area here, and you rather let Xeno escape one time too often instead of losing your entire strategy. So I can understand why Nightlight is playing how he's playing right now.
I think right now he's actually just waiting for the oppression cooldown to run down so he can kick this gen and then get the value. Yeah, that's exactly. He's just sticking around here. He's actually not moving to the other side of the map. He might just want to wait for this side to be regressed a little more, play a bit more patiently. I think this is where he's kicking into the gear of the problem that we see with these Singularity 3-gen sets is that they don't provide enough early game pressure for the 3-gen to actually threaten the survivors. Nightlight's done the exact opposite of that, with Xeno now dead on hook. That's a survivor who is effectively out of the game for quite a while, cannot safely work on any of these generators, and therefore is going to have to play so obscenely safely that he can't realistically help the team in a meaningful way. So, Nightlight gets that early game pressure. Now he can sort of afford to fall back to these 3 generators because it's going to be an effective 3v1 scenario for him.
We do get a little bit of pressure now onto Nightlight. 2 more generators coming out, 2 more to go here essentially. Cameras, pipods being set up again, and even a little bit corrected to a better location. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to set up the can with beans, because we might be here for a little bit longer on the Dead Dog Saloon. It is clear that the strategy comes down to locking the generators, playing careful on the killer side, not overcommitting, not trying to go for too much here. Xeno's demonstrating it. We need a lot of resilience here. Maybe even a good leader and an iron will in order to make sure that the adrenaline stays under control and we will be able to pull through. Eventually watching Oscar from the distance and then going for the teleport. He will reach the pallet, just holding W. This is also telling us that the survivors have understood now what's going on, because they don't want to sacrifice these precious resources too early, but that needs to be a fast vault. I'm sorry, Oscar, I'm not an expert, but I'm watching a lot of experts, and that needs to be a fast vault.
Yeah, there's no real excuse there, and Oscar goes down for it. Now we're getting even more early game pressure coming out. Xeno just Batmans his way down into proceedings there, almost presents himself on a silver platter, but Nightlight thinks of a juicier target. It's the generators once more. Goes to kick, but decides to change his mind because the unhook came out so quickly. He's seeing if he's able to apply some more pressure to these survivors. Everyone currently hit with a slipstream. Now, yes, one EMP is going to, you know, put an end to that, but again, it means that survivors have to print more EMPs. I like it was one of the matches earlier, Dai, where you mentioned the shopping list. And I think when you're able to effectively tag up so many survivors, even though it's a small thing, it is adding to that survivor shopping list, the concerns that they're forced to take care of before they can even dream about attacking the generators.
Yeah, we go back towards main building here. And that's might be the chance for the survivors right now. Nightlight basically, yeah, ready and opting to move a little bit out of the 3-gen lockdown area a little bit. Potentially telling us that he realizes Elysium is well coordinated and we need to have a little bit of extra pressure lurking in the cameras. Nightlight making sure here we see the correction earlier was actually well done. Perfect view onto the generator here. But Elysium playing this wonderful actor. Like, they really made sure that Xeno cannot be eliminated early. They are with such coordination. They keep it slow, but always perfectly between being slow and pressuring the generators. Really love to see it.
Yeah, they're maintaining a good hybrid, and that seems to be the key here. Nightlight has a hybrid build, so the Survivors are playing a hybrid style. They are attacking the 3-gen where they can. They're poking and prodding at it, but they recognize best that this is a death by 1,000 cuts sort of matchup. Marco actually gets deep wounded. That's the effectiveness of the family photo, the purple add-on coming through. It's a couple of seconds that could be bought for Nightlight, and again, Pedro being caught out here in a tough position actually drops the firecracker, but it's not going to be necessary here. I want to see if Nightlight actually fully commits over to this chase, which I think he will do. He has the overclock, the rapid brutality has expired. He's not running the baseball glove add-on, so he's not going to be able to have a longer overclock to have a more effective chase. He's instead going for the brown add-on to increase the targeting range of the biopods to more effectively control that 3-gen, but you've caught him! What were you doing there, Pedro? What? There was nothing there!
That's now going to be the difficult moment, ladies and gentlemen, where we find ourselves being carried back towards the generators. Yeah, it's a fresh hook, so you have a little bit of... Ooh! Little Zeno here in the corner. Cheeky Kate. Okay, that changes things a little bit, because I was like, now obviously Nightlight will lock down the area, make sure that no one can move in for free, getting the unhook. But the fact that Zeno is lurking there in the corner, that must be something that is not on Nightlight's radar yet. And I love that Elysium even has a counterplay idea for this difficult situation. Love to see it. That's brilliant.
Yeah, like, the small downside, it means that Zeno isn't pressuring gens in that time, but the fact that you get a free unhook onto Pedro in such a risky position actually makes it worth it. Pedro at least thought it was a free unhook, immediately just greets the gen anyway. I think it's gonna go down again. I'm unsure if this was a plan from Elysium, like they recognize that it's a down that they can afford to give, but listening to that gen, it's not even very heavily progressed, so right now, I hope that someone has some greater foresight than me, Pedro to be specific, because gets off the hook in such a tumultuous situation and then greeds a gen instead of going to the other side of the map to reset and just immediately goes down again. Now, yes, he's able to get picked up here, but now the chase just comes through onto Marco on the other side of the map. You know now that Survivors are gonna... They have to reset here. It would be insane of them to continue to greed these gens with 3 people injured. And yeah, they're going to be doing just that, fortunately.
And that also is a little bit of time for Elysium, right? Not only time for the reset itself, but also time to discuss again, how do we move forward from here? Who is going to take care of which generator? 2 injuries to be healed here, but on the other hand, it also grants a little bit of time to Nightlight, who can now readjust the position of the biopods a little bit, who can make sure that every corner of that mighty, holy 3-gen area is covered. So we'll need to see if this standstill can be broken by either side. Nightlight found the target, Pedro, but that's going to be alive. So no injury just yet. Back into the area here, Marco. And that's going to be the teleport coming out. So that will be an injury coming out onto the survivor. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Never before seen in the world of Dead by Daylight, running away from the 3-gen, especially in Singularity, set a very underrated strategy. Glad that Elysium just developed it. And there we are again, standstill, reset, and off we go again. And this is though why I can appreciate the Singularity so much, because at the end it will come down to 1-2 tactical nuances and mini mistakes deciding the loser and the winner here.
Yeah, I can't tell if this is 3D chess or 4D chess, to be honest, but it's the world of the best players to have ever done it, and we are simply living in it. We are going to sit ourselves down and simply and see what happens here, right? Now, Pedro's going to be eating another hit. I really like the rapid brutality on this killer. It kind of allows you to, obviously, you don't get bloodlust, but like that's fine anyway. You use your power so often to catch up in chase that it doesn't matter. You can get the rapid brutality, immediately catch up to a slipstream, survive with your shot. Then you have the inbuilt haste from the overclock, 3%, on top of the 5% from the rapid brutality, and it can allow you to be surprisingly lethal in chase. Again, control the gens and control the chase. Nightlight's done a very effective job so far of controlling both of them. It's just a slow trade. For Nightlight, you're trading gen percentage. For the survivors, you're trading injuries and in some extreme cases, hook stages. Both of these teams know that they have to give something. They're not going to be able to play perfectly. They're not going to be able to have no one not get injured. No one avoid being hooked in situations like this. But Nightlight seemingly is only partially checking. There's a lot of EMP'd cameras and he doesn't care about them because he knows that he'll always have another one. Xeno is the death on hook survivor. I want to see if Nightlight's priorities change here. No, they do not. Why would I think anything different? But you're going to find Marco, who's going to take a lot of caution in dropping these pallets because he knows just how valuable they'll be. But that could allow Nightlight to catch up, have a quick chase here. We are going to have to get rid of the Shack pallet, which isn't quite within the split of the 3-gen, but it's still one of the strongest pallets that exist on the map. So it's a resource that's gone for the survivors, but whether that actually comes back to bite them later on, I can't quite tell yet.
And we might see the next hook stage coming in here in a second with Marco in the chase and the teleport. Nightlight smells the blood here, but he also notices that the Elysium survivors are swarming by. Pedro coming out to take a hit. That's the next injury though, back to 3 injuries across the board. Nightlight, 2 injuries, never mind, with the heal onto Xeno there, but Nightlight makes progress. He's getting more and more pressure onto them, and he is able to keep Elysium under control. So we might just progress, and once we have the next hook stage, we are talking about an entirely different story, because then you need one survivor who's taking the unhook. You need to consider more resets again and so on. So things might be shifting here very soon.
And Oscar went to try and EMP the camera in Nightlight's face, but Nightlight was actually able to teleport just in time. That's like a matter of seconds, if not milliseconds, and Pedro finally goes down. It is on the pallet. It's very risky to send an injured survivor here to save. With Oscar over in the 3-gen side of the map, like, I don't think they can get anyone to pick this up. But Nightlight actually doesn't opt to pick it up. It's just going to let that be more and more slowdown. Pedro is not yet dead on hook. Only ate 1 hook stage earlier, I believe. So, like, you are kind of fine with letting him stay there, forcing someone away from the 3-gen to pick him up. Remember, Xeno is the target that you want. Xeno did get injured a while ago. They are prioritizing the reset onto him right now, however. So it's going to be another reset for the survivors, but you could hear the progress on the gen that Nightlight just kicked. That was seemingly about the 70% mark, so the survivors are continuing to make dents here. I think Nightlight might find the reset soon. They didn't heal Xeno. They didn't manage to finish on Xeno.
They didn't, and that's the big thing, right? This is what I meant when I said it's slowly shifting into Nightlight's favor here, because we do see more injuries across the board. It took a long time, very understandably. If the survivors are running away and are perfectly coordinated, what are you supposed to do if you don't want to give up the generators for free? But slowly but steady, with staying calm, making sure the area is protected, and also removing resources more and more from the Dead Dog Saloon, he is able to pull the control back. We do gain more injuries. They do have to reset entirely again here, which also tells us there is no noticeable pressure on the generators at the moment. So Nightlight gained a little bit of time. He can control the area around Pedro for a little bit. Elysium with a well-timed unhook though, but the question is who will be the next target, and the answer is Oscar pressuring the gens. Now it's a good work from Elysium again. Oscar staring at him like, get stunned, buddy, and please don't hit me afterwards. But that's
Nice
the
try,
next
bro.
hook stage now. So Nightlight definitely becoming dominant here right now.
He had so much confidence in that gen not flying that he actually just outweighted the EMP timer. Most Singularity players, when they see that an EMP near the 3 gen has been used and the camera's disabled, they panic and they think, okay, I have to go right over there. Nightlight takes his time. He realizes I've regressed these gens so much throughout the course of this game that I'm able to complete my business over here. I'm able to continue to get my injuries, pressure the unhook, actually gain a hook stage onto Oscar before I return. Now the survivors are being forced to burn resources on this side of the map. That's already 2 pallets from this area, which is entirely pallets, which are now gone for the survivors. And Elysium are having the slowest collapse I've ever seen, but to be honest, it's all been informed by Nightlight and that early game pressure that's come out. Now Pedro and Xeno are both dead on hook. Remember what I said before about fighting an effective 3v1? Now you're fighting an effective 2v1. Xeno and Pedro have to be so careful of going anywhere remotely near these gens or they are dead. And Xeno's right here in the corner of the map with a bunch of pallets now gone. This is the prime target to hunt down.
This is such a tricky back and forth here. So far, our killer doing a fantastic job. He really stopped that generator last second here. And Oscar still on the ground. The problem is we do not even really have the time to get that survivor onto the hook. Elysium now swarming back into the area. Everyone is basically running everywhere. Oscar is being picked up in the distance. And that's going to be the return once
did he lose
again.
Pedro?
Is it enough? No, he has to return. Oscar being pulled away from the generator now. That is just enough time for Xeno. Ladies and gentlemen, we are free. Elysium pulled it. Oscar saying goodbye to us. And now we, in best case, get Marco here, who has a fresh hook. So Felix is our prime target. And at the same time, will Felix be the survivor that they are hiding with everything possible?
I mean, yeah, surely they are. Every survivor currently slipstreamed, however, it doesn't look like they're actually prioritizing getting rid of those as much as they are, yeah, trying to keep that Felix protected, and yeah, gonna be leaving along with Xeno. Not the worst case scenario here for Nightlight. You're able to accrue a couple more stages off of Pedro's lifeless corpse here, which we'll be seeing very shortly. But ultimately, look, it's not the 4K that you wanted from Singularity, but Singularity doesn't 4K all that often. It's about 40% of the time, averages about 7 to 8 hook stages per match. And it ended up there being exactly 8 hook stages. So Invictus and Nightlight did all that to get bang on average. Very interested to hear what the analyst desk have to say about that, so we're going to be tossing it over to them for the break.
Look, I know that I often tout that I believe that Nightlight, one of the GOATs, but to be able to walk away with just an average hook count after having the fastest down that we've seen on the Singularity is kind of wild. So we'll kind of break things down into 2 halves of that last trial. And I guess let's start with you here, MetalBro. What did you see as far as what Nightlight did right early, on top of not just the fast down, but being able to establish a good 3-gen essentially?
Absolutely. Well, I'll say that the ingredients for a very risky situation were brewing in the very early stages of the match, right? Elysium survivors were working generators pretty quickly. Their gen progress was great, but they were working themselves into a 3-gen, and probably the worst spot on the map that the 3-gen could have possibly spawned in. It's that pallet dense area in the backside of the map where there's nothing but pallets, and that's all there is. And if there's a 3-gen there, like, you're gonna burn through resources so quickly. And that's exactly what the survivors of Elysium worked themselves into. It was a very, very strong position for Nightlight to hold, and just working that in was very, very strong in his favor.
We definitely heard the casters pointed out, right? Like we saw Nightlight play more of the aggressive strategy early, thanks to the fact that he did not only get himself some early hook pressure, but then also was able to still maintain a good 3-gen scenario. You can understand him playing himself into that spot. But then Elysium, I mean, they showed exactly why they're here in the grand finals. Break down that survivor side performance here for me, Zach.
Yeah, sure. So with Dead sets in general, you're looking to call out like your worst 3-gen, especially in a set like this. So, we have to assume that the survivors kind of had that established early on. Which I don't know if you noticed in the early game, he kind of was checking on that kind of as he was going along. But I have to commend the survivor side of Elysium because they did play the early game slow wash, trying to get into that final sort of late game situation where I think it's a bit inevitable. Like I don't think Nightlight was ever going to let that 3-gen go, even if he was playing aggressive early on. And the coordination from Elysium, like first of all, just to hold on to resources, but also, I mean, like something like where Xeno was stealthing next to that sort of deep hook into that 3-gen. Dai picked up on it. I thought it was very good. Like essentially kind of pre-stealthing, knowing that hook's going to be there and it's really bad position. Like they were prepared for it. Like you could tell that they practiced it. And of course, these are the two teams of the highest level, right? So they're going to be prepared for this. I think Elysium it was very like an accumulation of good things. Like they didn't burn through the resources in the far corner like too soon. They did start to burn them eventually when you're getting into those like when the gens are getting closer and closer. But yeah, for me, Elysium were calm, controlled. They played it slow where they needed to, and then they essentially at the end there split the two last gens 2 and 2. So Nightlight essentially was juggling between them, which I think is inevitably like what really won it for them.
Well, we did see that Elysium's survivors able to scratch and claw and put up a pretty darn good result, all things considered. It's now going to be up to Obi coming out here onto the Dead Dog Saloon to try and be able to beat that mark in order to allow for this Elysium squad to start this best of 7 in our first series of our grand final with a set victory. So let's go ahead and do it. Let's head on out to the Wild Wild West, the deadest of dogs, one more time and take another trip back into the fog.
Everything's come down to this matchup. Dozens of matches, thousands of chases, every ounce of mastery that these players can muster, and they've decided to open it up with a chess matchup. Intriguing here, but definitely something for the history books here as we're going to go into Elysium's attempt here. Remember, Nightlight on the side of Invictus was able to secure 8 hook stages and 3 fresh hooks. So, what does Obi need here? 9 hook stages would of course get the win, as would 8 hook stages and 4 fresh hooks. Anything less than that, Invictus make their stamp here, but anything more than that, and a quite unexpected win comes out for Elysium, a set which they aren't particularly favored in, but they do have the potential to manage. Now, what would we have expected from a Singularity here? We're going to be seeing Call of Brine, as per. We're going to be seeing Oppression as per, and we're going to be seeing just more things to emphasize the slowdown. Nightlight's build emphasized the chase a little bit more. It cycled that with the slowdown. Obi is fully committing to this slowdown, which is fine, provided that your chases are on point. And that's an angle and a half, able to get a beautiful hit onto Dan there. But do recall that the survivors for Invictus are the best in the world, at least in my humble opinion. Obviously, their killer sets are always fantastic, of course, but the survivors generally set very generous win conditions for the killers to get. So Obi has a lot of heavy lifting to do to fend off the best survivor team in the world.
Yep, especially because the Gallows area is not as gifted as in the previous trial. That's a little bit of a problem later on when we talk about the defense of the generators here. Hits being taken for one another. That's exactly what we expect from the best players here. Spitz not even taking the hit, instead just going for the stun onto Obi, so making distance for free basically, and we still have the body to be thrown in case that Dan needs it, but Dan going down before that. Pedro in the distance with a generator almost fully completed, so that's going to be 1-1 at the start here. One generator in exchange for one hook stage, but it does show us Obi is here to fight. Obi getting the down relatively early. We have seen Invictus bullying some killers during the season with very long chases. Glad to see that this is not the case here, but it will take a lot more in order to win this.
Yeah, like that down was definitely slower than Nightlight. It was 155, but again, recall that the average first down for a Singularity is 4 minutes. Obi is very ahead of schedule. Also recall that Nightlight had chase perks on top of the slowdown perks to enable a faster first chase. So honestly, despite the fact that Obi's time is lower, I think the fact that he still has early game pressure here, that's the most important thing. Unfortunately, Pedro is playing this tile absolutely perfectly, kind of denying the teleport value. Of course, yes, when you shoot a slipstream survivor, you're going to teleport to them, but if they have some distance and there's an object in the way, like a window or a pallet, then you just kind of appear in the same spot. Pedro using that to its fullest to manipulate the teleport ability of the Singularity, and means that he just has to abandon him. Now it's going to be a break onto the pallet, but hindered in the process. Obi is just going to, instead of utilizing any fancy chase perks or tricks, he is just going to hard brute force it now. He has to check back on the 3-gen. At the beginning of the match, he was very liberal with it. In the entirety of his first chase, he did not check it once. Now, however, that Survivors have had some time to rotate, he knows that they want to break that 3-gen sooner rather than later, so he's going to have to do something about it. Of course, good fundamentals from the Survivors. They send the balanced landing Survivor to the Gallows generator. Shouldn't stop Kexo from eating an M1 here, but Obi would have to deviate from these gens quite a lot to play any differently than that.
Yeah, if you're asking me, it does feel like it's going a little bit too slow, right? Like, Obi is doing a good job with that first chase. Slower than Nightlight, but still something you can accept here. But right now, it's really silent on the Dead Dog Saloon. The Survivors Spitz, Dan, and Pedro, they have been healthy for most of this time. They can just freely go onto the generators here, and they can just make sure that they get the pressure in. So we need to see something, and it is Obi who needs to make the next step here. We need some downs, we need some hook stages, and we need to make sure that we progress through the stages. Getting the down onto Spitz is very important here, and will set sail to get a little bit more pressure into the trial. But getting Spitz is not going to be enough once again. Invictus had enough time now to set themselves up. It is also really quiet on the generator side, but that is the result from constantly getting the heal and also making sure that they are individually going to make sure. I'm just getting informed that the little noise that we heard on Actor's microphone was a fire alarm in the apartment or in the building, so we wish our caster Actor all the best, and I'm pulling up Zach very spontaneously from the analyst desk. Zach, welcome back, my friend. Seems like the world wants us to cast together.
Yes, nothing can separate us, Direwolf. Yeah, I was watching this trial kind of carefully in the background, and Obi just it doesn't seem he's relentlessly checking his 3-gen as much as Nightlight did. That's kind of how I'm framing it under the 3-gen, because it's essentially like really the staple of these sets. We only have one stage on the board and 2 gens are gone, and look at how slow the Survivors are playing it. They really are not letting Obi get any breathing room. The resources around this side of the map have kind of been burnt. But yeah, that far side, I feel like the camera placement doesn't seem as effective. So it's one of the keys as to why he isn't holding this 2-boat, like pulling him to main building. Like, he's being pulled from like one side of the map to the other, and he just can't seem to get any momentum now. Like, chase onto Kexo, he will make that window. It's gonna be close. Yeah, he does make that good ping onto Kexo's side, and yeah, he can't commit that really because he needs to worry about these far gens. It's his only way to really secure the pressure, especially after he hasn't gotten so much early on.
Yeah, I'm really worried, unfortunately, because with Nightlight we have seen over the course of the trial the number of injuries increased, right? And there was this moment where we said, okay, the killer is gaining some more advantage, some more control in the trial. And unfortunately, I feel like it is the opposite here. We had a few hook stages and we had a few injuries, but right now, look at that. They are all healthy. They all removed the bipod backpacks, however you want to call it, with the EMP. And it is basically a step back when we talk about what Obi has achieved so far. So, yeah, not entirely sure.
Do you think it's kind of similar to kind of how Ariandel faced Zaka's Singularity yesterday, just playing it slow, knowing that they will eventually get these gens if they just ensure that essentially Obi can't use his power, he can't get the pressure down?
And I mean, pressure down. I'm trying to figure out strategies right now at the top of my head, right? That's why I'm like stuck. But like, what are you supposed to tell Obi if you're the coach in the background that is trying to tell Obi like, this is what you have to do now, and this is what we really need here. It looks just so tough. We had one more stage again, but everywhere it's basically burning. It's burning at the generator. It's maybe burning in Egdar's house, even though we don't hope for it. It's like, I don't know. Obi is cooked.
Yeah, it does seem that way. And you essentially just give like, not giving any inches or miles in this game is that survivor side. Pedro will go down. Does he have time to hook though? Every time he commits to a hook, it's time for the generators. And look, yeah, Dan's working that one in the far corner. I mean, it's not as far as maybe the survivors would hope. So Obi does have time, but essentially it's like a war of these. It's a war of time, pretty much. From like each down to the next one. How much progress can the survivors get? And it doesn't seem to me like this 3-gen, I mean, it's basically identical to what Nightlight had last game. This gen is a bit further than the other one, like positionally, but you can see there's a lot of things in the way of these cameras too. Like, there's just so much to really look at. But yeah, like the survivors just constantly resetting, constantly getting rid of the power, and it is a war of attrition. Like, eventually, I feel like this is going to go into the survivors side. And bearing in mind, we've only got about 3 or so hook stages on the board versus the 8 from last trial. And they're using his sprint burst to get away. Obi just trying to commit something to try and get a bit more pressure. But yeah, like all of these chases just being taken so far away from that far corner. Just Invictus showing their coordinated sides.
Yeah, we're on halftime at the moment with our 4 stages. So if we would get any other stage, I mean, good would be Pedro quickly, because then we have the elimination. And then we get Kexo and camp him to death in the end game. Then we would at least reach... No, then we would even reach to win, because then we have 8 stages and 4 individual survivors. So this would be the optimal plan here. But Invictus, with all the resources they have, especially since they are all healthy, will obviously not allow that. We will see some buddies being thrown in. We'll see them guide each other towards the main building. So let's see if Obi is able to catch one of these survivors by surprise, potentially, because I feel like a little bit of a misstep is now needed on the survivor side, because they are so aware of the surroundings. They communicate perfectly. They are leaving the generators early, not giving Obi any chance of even taking over. It looks tough. And if the survivors do not make a mistake, then I agree with you, Zach. In this case, they should make it out of here.
Yeah, this goes back to consistency. Like, they know what pallets they have everywhere. They scout the area. They know how much distance they need to take, and they know when to call. Like, just everything, like down to its to the smallest detail, is what sets these survivor performances apart. And of course, you know, Elysium still played an amazing trial. Like, we can't discredit them, but Invictus just seemed to be like basically erasing all of Obi's pressure the second he gets any form of like wiggle room. Like it's just like Invictus just say like, nah, never mind. We'll just fully reset, and then you can't do anything. And then it gets to a point where Obi in his mind is this clock ticking. Like, how long do I have? He knows sort of what progression he's got to work with, and then it essentially comes down to whether he overextends or if the survivors just are going down too fast, maybe conceding a little too much before the team have any chance of getting that last gen. But yeah, nevertheless, I mean, it's still a long trial and it's a long fought battle. So yeah, it's gonna come down to maybe an accumulation of 2 or 3 things combining for this set to end, really.
Yeah, Obi, you carry Elysium on your back at the moment, but we need to have a little bit more. We need the injuries, and we need to make sure that the injuries spread across the survivors here. The fact that Invictus is constantly able to remove the killer power and to get 4 injuries healed and constantly stay healthy is a sign who is the dominant role at the moment, and that's why I'm far less concerned for the survivors compared to the previous trial, because in the previous trial we tried to get the last generator completed, but we were injured, we were under pressure, we were bleeding, we were basically everything. But here Invictus is kind of vibing, opening a barbecue at the edge map and a food truck on the other side of the map, and they are just running around a little bit, enjoying their DBD party. So I'm not as concerned as in the previous trial. So if they don't make this mistake, they should take the out here. And it's sad that Nightlight is not here, because otherwise we could call this an iconic strategy.
You know, I feel like when we make preparations as casters, you know, we always do our research, but I feel like you just have like an entire notepad full of jokes at your disposal, and you prepare them. You take into account rosters, perks, killer choices. I don't know how you do it, but it is always funny to see. And yeah, I mean, on the point of Nightlight, like, you've got a guy who is absolutely perfect at kind of playing these sets out. Do you think he probably acts as an advisor to the survivor side too, because he knows exactly the limits of the killer, exactly what to do? So in a sense, it's that kind of advantage as well, right? I wonder in their practice if they've got Nightlight over their shoulder saying like, oh, you know, this is really how you optimize this kind of 3-gen scenario. And yeah, I mean, this is the first time we've seen more than 2 injuries on the team of Invictus, so like a bit of wiggle room for Obi. Is this gen about to pop? Oh, it looks like Dan wanted to commit that. Yeah, it was very, very close. Maybe almost the opportunity for a mistake there, but yeah, look at that. Already resetting. Dan makes it to the safety of this front main window, and then he has the entire bot side of the map just kind of opened up to him. There's a bit of a routine. But it was only down on that bot side too, on the top side doing that gen. So he has good information on the survivors, where they're resetting. It is essentially like how much Obi can catch up in this little scenario. Catches the reset and stops the gen. How much time did they have to rotate to try and pick that gen back up? Yeah, he was trying to get the TP. There's already someone that's back on that gen too. It's just so back and forth, and there's maybe the only time we've seen Obi have a bit of pressure on them. So a little bit of momentum going for him. As you can see, no one's on a gen. They're all resetting, slowing down a little bit. Dan going on such a good chase right now, and he will make that main window again. We're back to square one. We get a bit of momentum, and the survivors just basically say, yeah, say goodbye to all of your progress. I have to feel for Obi. This is basically like one of the most stressful situations you can be in as a killer, right?
Absolutely, especially because your entire team is with you as well. Let's take a quick look in case Obi is deafened. No, he's not. He's streaming to his entire team there. So he has like 8 people at the moment Most likely, because none of them is muted over there, telling him go here, chase there, and so on. So it's not only the pressure that you feel from the trial, it's on top of that that you're in a grand final, that you have so many people watching you, that you have your own team watching you, and all of them obviously having different strategies there. What a stressful situation for Obi. Back to 3 injuries though. We make some progress on the survivor side. Kexo is going down, and Kexo is our fresh hook, and that's important now because that means that he has an advantage in win condition 3 in the individual survivors hook. So if he now rises it up to 8 stages, 3 more from now, then he would be fine. Just a tunnel on 1 survivor will not be enough. He needs 2 individual survivors from now on, but with 8 and 4, he would be fine. So there's hope. There's a lot of hope.
Yeah, but he's chasing the survivor that's healthy, the only one in the game. Dan pre-ran away, and then Spitz was left on the gen alone. Just they account for every scenario. It's so, it's so impressive. Keks are not being found. Like you say, he needs to catch one of these, 2 of these injured survivors at least, but it's every second that counts down is a chance for them to rotate to an open gate. So 1 survivor is not going to be enough. Yeah, he forces grab, and I can't imagine it's too long before the gate opens itself. Yeah, they're getting on it now. Dan, Kexo healthy. Dan injured, Spitz somewhere on the map. Oh, that was Pedro dead, actually. So only 1 stage. Is he going to be able to interrupt this gate opening? We've got down on the EMP, and Obi is on the opposite side of the map. And I think that's going to be enough for Invictus to make it out alive.
Unfortunately, they are speaking from the POV of the Elysium team. That is 6 stages on 4. Compared to 8 stages on 3. It is actually Invictus pulling it here in set number 1, you could say. It is expected. They pick the set. They are known for being good on Singularity. But with Elysium breaking that final generator in the previous trial, I really feel like there was some hope. So, ladies and gentlemen, Egdar is not back yet, as said. Fire alarm in the caster apartment. So again, our wishes go out to Egdar. By the way, this is the 2nd time that this guy is casting DBDL with a fire alarm. It happened 2 years ago. I don't know what he's doing while he's casting, but something is definitely not working out there. So we're going to make some switches here. Our tournament analyst, Toby, is joining the analyst desk with a lot of stats and data. And I'll kidnap Zach into the caster spot here because he's finally used from it. I haven't even asked Zach, so he's hearing that right now. So, Q, off to you. What do you think about the first set here?
Well, I gotta say the first set was a banger. We saw both killers at some point in time able to set up a nice little 3-gen, but both survivor squads doing a great job of being able to fight back. I feel like, though, Obi maybe not as aggressively defending the 3-gen. What are your thoughts there, MetalBro?
Yeah, well, you know what? I really do feel like Obi could have committed more to defending the 3-gen just as much as Nightlight did. I mean, he had a full build for it, despite Nightlight, putting up a better performance with half the amount of slowdown perks for the 3-gen, right? But, I mean, either way, that was still an incredibly well-fought match on both sides, in my personal opinion. Just watching that whole match play out, right? I mean, the 3-gen was defended very well on both sides. Obi playing very well into it, just not as much as Nightlight did. We had cameras placed, but Nightlight had like 3 per gen, whereas Obi tried to spare some for use in chase. But I did want to talk about the fact that Invictus played the Survivor side really well. I mean, they've scrimmed this thing so many times. They did very, very good on taking chases far away from the 3-gen. And I noticed that they had maybe 1 or 2 people in the 3-gen at a time and 2 others outside of it, just kind of rotating back and forth and, keeping pressure up in the 3-gen and taking chases outside of the 3-gen whenever necessary. It was a very good performance on both sides, in my opinion, but Invictus just really showing dominant in this set, and that's, I think, why they chose it.
I feel like it's like the newer saying of Invictus just doing Invictus things, right? Sometimes it's just hard to explain when the best of the best are able to really do what they do best, you know? So got to give it up. I mean, the survivors are here in the grand finals for a reason. Now, Toby, I'm kind of curious from what you saw. What do you feel like could have been a different approach as far as for Obi if they were to try and kind of change the result around a little bit?
I mean, Obi pretty much decided how he wanted to play this trial, depending on his build that he brought. But we've seen two different versions of the Singularity in Season X. We started with the more chase-orientated Singularity in the first stage of the season, basically. And this was also what Bubba was playing in the Ariandel versus Oracle match, where Oracle was bringing out the oppression strat the first time and tried to like play some mental warfare there. But the chase-orientated Singularity tends to get more stages than what we have seen in the past two trials. It's like a much quicker way of playing the trial because you have a lot of map control with the Singularity. You get rid of pellets really, really fast, and it tends to work slightly better according to my statistic at least. So Obi could have gone for that, but he decided to go for the oppression playstyle instead.
Unfortunately, just ended up not working out for him. Now, the good news here is it is that longer series. I think more importantly here, I mean, we talked in that first set our series on the day, best of 5 even still is plenty of time if you drop series number 1. But I guess the question now becomes if you drop series number 2, do you start pressing the panic button, MetalBro?
I would think so, honestly. I mean, these two teams are competing for the number one spot. It's a lot of pressure, right? Mentally, and even more so. I mean, the key to really winning this matchup is staying cool and remembering what the goal is and playing to your best ability, which both these teams are definitely doing. We had an incredible showing on the Singularity, but now we're moving over to Myers on Larry's, and there's a lot in store for this match. I am looking forward to it very much.
What would you say is? I know you are our number guy here, Toby. What's the average result when it comes to shape here this season in DBDL season 10?
At the moment, it's around 8 stages. You basically have 8 stages on average as Myers, but we have seen some ridiculous results. I think we saw one 4K4 in the Oracle versus Ariandel matchup, if I remember correctly. But most of the time, Myers is around 8 stages. But we can't forget that we have the arguably two best teams here, and both of them have already shown that they can play this Myers sets really, really well. And we could see like 2 or 3 stage games here potentially.
Yeah, both teams have definitely shown an ability to communicate quite well. That was definitely something that it feels like worked to the advantage of Invictus in that last set as they were able to walk away with the dub. We turn our eyes to set number 2. We're off to Larry's for the shape. Let's go ahead and take another trip back into the fog.
Thank you, YoBoyCue, and now we have the final Singularity trial, set of Season X out of the way. No more marathon trials for these survivors, and we're getting on to the remainder of the sets now. Myers, of course, against teams like this, you've got to be expecting low stages. So I'm looking forward to see what can pull off of the survivor side of Invictus versus Zeno for the side of Elysium playing killer. Looking at the packs, we have Trail of Torment actually in place for the undetectable, compared with Call of Run Eruption, that classic gen kick regression combination we've seen so many times in the later half of Season X so far. And we're just trying to find our survivors. In this corrupt area of the zone, you can see all of our survivors are trying to stealth somewhat. Someone was in a locker just as he walked past, actually, playing with fire a little bit there. But yeah, the essence of stealth trials is really trying to get the location of the killer down first before we're doing anything as survivors. So that's essentially what we're seeing happen right here. Survivors basically off the generators, trying to see where our Myers is, and we already have a second stage. There's going to be an injury onto Dan, getting caught out of position a little bit there. Zeno can be happy with that one, but doesn't want to commit chase. Trying to catch people off guard, trying to make the most of the stealth element. And yeah, we're going to be seeing a bit of a slow start to this trial. And we'll see, I guess, who slips up fast. Whether he'll get his tier 3 fast, but it doesn't seem like he's got too much stalk going on.
And first and foremost, I have to say, I love the shape and I love everything about this set. And I don't know exactly why they picked it as set number 2 in the grand final, but this is at the same time telling us that there must be a secret strategy, a secret evil plan coming out from Elysium, because otherwise you do not just randomly select a killer that got barely played in season 10, barely played in the competitive scene as a whole, right? And then in the grand final, it was Elysium's first pick, and it was a protected pick before they even had a chance to ban. Elysium says on a pick like that, we gonna go for Michael. So there must be some deeper plan involved, and I'm happy to look forward what Zeno has in store for us here. He's definitely getting a good amount of stalk progress already, 2.5 basically at the moment. The Survivor's doing a good job in breaking line of sight, not feeding him any additional stalk progress here, switching over to the generators as well. And the strategy seems to be clear, especially with that kind of stealth perk. Later when we... Oh, Kexo! You little greedy Nancy! That's not going to work out here. So, first injury coming out before we even get into the dangerous part of the Michael. But yeah, it seems like we want to enter tier 3, then hide ourselves, and then make sure that we basically jump scare someone. And if he's able to pull that once or twice throughout the trial, I'm really looking forward to the chaos that might unfold here.
Yes, he has control of the pallet, and he's about to hit tier 3. Yeah, I mean, he lets Nightlight get around there. Gonna be 99ing that. Break it. Does Nightlight make any distance, though? It looks like this might be... Oh, he just makes the pallet. Yeah, Zeno doesn't want to pop it just yet. Oh, he got this 50-50. Oh, that was really well played by Nightlight. And Zeno hesitated just a little bit. Otherwise, that would have been our first down. But he is stuck at the pallet vaulting now, so that's going to be a first down. We still haven't seen a gen pop, but that's understandable given that they were playing a little bit slower at the start. I do wonder how much progression is on the map. Dan is about to pop one. Kexo is about 30% of the way through. And yeah, with a hook stage on the board now, a tier 3, and Spitz has been spotted. Oh, the double back coming through, and he doesn't have any form of escape. This is bad. This is bad, team. We've got Spitz on the ground, and rotation is going to be cut off by the tier 3 Zeno. This is quite bad, and I think that Invictus are going to have to pull something off here to get back on their feet, though.
And this is the evil plan we talked about. I feel like, I mean, the team is not in the tournament anymore, but I feel like I was some sort of an oracle here. What's about to happen? Because Zeno did exactly that. He came into the grand final and says, I'm selecting the underrated Michael. Never played in the tournament, barely played in the tournament. Bringing him out with a crazy strategy, perk build, perfectly suiting that, right? Quickly to tier 3 with the add-ons, then hiding terror radios, making some jump scares, and they got the survivor off the ground again, but it was costing some time, and they are not as quick back onto the generators as they would like to. And also Nightlight in second stage already with 4 generators still to be played. Now, some people would say that Zeno should have never been counted out, but sometimes, like, it is not that obvious for me, because Zeno, as much as we know that he can surprise us, as much as we know that he has great ideas when we talk about competitive DBD, he surprises us time and time again. And if he continues this strategy and if it works out, then it will be a fantastic result here. The problem is, Invictus is a team that can adapt really quickly, and now they know about this strategy. So it will be interesting if they find a good answer to this.
Yeah, interesting. We've got Dan coming in to protect Nightlight. Tier 3 about to be popped. imagine that he's going to be able to get some slugging pressure if there's not enough distance. And they unfortunately get mind gamed. Is there enough distance for Nightlight to make it to safety? Eruption pops. That's going to be Spitz with Aura. And Nightlight, he doesn't. Oh my god, he makes too much distance away from the pallet. So that's going to be a down. And he has information on Spitz too. But that's Nightlight leaving the trial. Down on the ground and 2 survivors injured. What is happening right now? It is so insane. I was not expecting them to give any sort of room to this Michael Myers, but yeah, it looks like they've kind of tripped up a little bit. They're going to need to get some resets in potentially in order to get back into this. But a survivor dead at 3 gens, well, 2 gens remaining now, but that's got to be some dream work for Michael Myers, right? And a set that we typically see probably, I mean, last I think it was semi-finals, we saw like a 2-3 stage, like back-to-back sets, and we've seen 4K4 as well. It just goes one way or the other, but this is looking bad. He has the Trail of Torment. The unhook does come through. He's trying to look to see if where the other survivors across the map, but the rotation does come through. And I do wonder what Xeno's priority is now, as he's got that first survivor out of the game. Tier 3 is looking like it's about to end, and yeah, it's looking bad for the survivors of Invictus after that mess up there.
Yeah, the 3 injuries definitely helping a lot here, because if you keep yourself... Oh, nice attempt there, though. Not everyone expects that it's going to be the quick swing, so definitely worth the try. But yeah, with everyone injured, you do not even necessarily have to go for tier 3 in order to make it happen. And the difficult mind games coming out here, but Kexo, a little bit too much patience at the final swing here. So that's going to be the down. But since we're in the corner of the map, Xeno quickly rotating back. Dan and Spitz not able to finish the 4th generator. Need to be careful. And Michael now could pop up behind every single corner in tier 2. Really hard to track. Hello, Dan. Hello. We are going into the next chase here. Good reaction, though. But that tells us that you really need to be on the watch, and you need to be really, really careful.
Oh, there's just so many angles he could approach from. Like, that was really close. Dan looked so dead right there, and he managed to get around to safety. My goodness, that could have been bad, but yeah, the slug now is picked up off the floor. Kexo was picked up, starting a gen off in that corner now with Dan kind of in chase. We have about 30% of the way for our tier 3, and do you have this filler pallet for safety? That's going to be dropped now. And it looks like there's enough distance now for the down to be secured. Calling the down for the eruption. So there's going to be no aura reading on the survivors this time compared to last time. But that's Dan now going 2nd stage, and not really enough progression to speak of. Kexo is about 40% of the way onto 1, and Spitz now trying to stealth for this unhook as Xeno makes his way over to these generators. And I like this move for playing for the 4K2, to be honest, holding these gens down, because a 4K3 on Myers, maybe apart from that 4K4, have we ever really seen that? The only 4K3s I ever saw were on Myers, but probably AHL last year. It's been a while, definitely, and I feel like Xeno's experience is going to allow him to hold on to that, these 2 gens, especially when they're not really having too much time to reset as well. They're always on the edge of death when it comes to this, because Xeno can approach from anywhere, especially now he's got that Trail of Torment active. The 3v1 makes it so hard to communicate. The second he goes missing, the second they say we've got no eyes on him, you have to play so safe, and that's inevitably going to work out in his favor. But yeah, we just go between these scenarios where no one's found. If Dan goes down here, he gets found, he's dead, and that's going to leave them in a 2v1. So wouldn't be surprised if they try to keep him hidden. Yeah, Spitz now getting found. Does have this gold pallet for safety. Gonna farm him for tier 3. Probably not too interested in taking that. And yeah, Dire, like it's inevitably gonna fall apart. I do wonder what Invictus can do to kind of get these gens done. Do you have any thoughts for them as a team right now, fighting against this scary Michael?
I mean, the first impressive thing is that they even still stand. A lot of teams would have fallen apart with being hit by these jump scare, spooky strategy that is trying to move up to the tier 3 quickly and then basically creating this chaos. So I definitely see the coordination and the experience here. Especially also with these survivors staying injured, right? You can tell at the moment the priority is really on the generators. They need to get more generators done. Fun fact about Larry's, back then, ghost phase on Larry's was such often a tie being needed and always a 4K1. So I feel like on Larry's, you really want to make sure that you at least get 4 generators out of the way here. So that is the next down coming out onto Dan here, and Zeno will be able to move him into the midsection of the trial now, closer towards the other generators as well.
Yes.
This will make it a lot easier now to reach over towards this generator that we are currently working on, but we even see that it's only 20%, so the little time that we gained here wasn't even that desperately needed. And now it's going to be Zeno playing a little bit of Minecraft, plus 20 steel there from this poor little tile. And whoa! Kexo with a tent on the roof of the behavior headquarter, living inside of the server. Impressive that didn't hit. And we need all these seconds now. Is this the chase into generator number 4, ladies and gentlemen? The answer is no, unfortunately not. Spitz, in case Zeno picks the correct generator immediately, not be able to finish it. But that was a fantastic attempt.
Wow, I just Kexo locking in. I always feel like he's such a good survivor, especially in these like 2v1 scenarios. Doesn't get that gen, unfortunately, and yeah, that's gonna be the 4K2 secured for Elysium. Now Invictus facing a 4K3 win condition on the shape. I feel like this is definitely in Elysium's court right now, and wow, a lot to break down there. I think for our analysts, maybe we throw it back to them a little bit early for a breakdown of this match as we pick our survivors up, get them hooked. Hugh, away over to you.
What a trial. And I know we had heard Dyer mention the old throwback of the seeing Ghostface on this good old Larry's Memorial Institute and the 4K1s, and some good times for sure in the past. I gotta say though, it definitely felt like, especially in this case, and keep in mind I haven't watched too many Michael Myers sets I haven't been able to catch, but it felt like that first elimination came in incredibly early. Toby, do we have like a general average of when that first elim comes across, especially on the shape set?
We do not have a general average, but the first down in shape sets tends to be relatively slow. It's around the 3.5 minute mark at the moment, because the survivors play really careful and are stealthing a lot. However, in this trial, Nightlight died relatively fast due to 2 key factors. He got zoned on the edge of the map when Zeno was about to hit tier 3 and got caught on a pellet more or less when he died first. Then I think it was Dan? No, it was Spitz. Spitz got caught in the middle at the generator while trying to rotate for the unhook, and this situation created like a really precarious spot for Invictus because they couldn't send anyone for the unhook, and Zeno could camp Nightlight into second stage for free basically. And then Nightlight made a small mistake at the pellet and went down relatively soon, so this is why the elimination came in so early.
And elimination comes in early, and then even like there was some fight backs for sure later on in the 3v1, but it felt like so hard to combat with the fact that on top of being in a 3v1 and still having so many gens left to do, you got to worry about a stealth killer that's running around, and it's not a Michael Myers in tier 1. I mean, how much value do you think we saw that really prove in that last trial there, MetalBro?
Well, you know, the use of Trail of Torment really netted a lot of value. I mean, it's such a good perk on an indoor map like Larry's Memorial. You know, so it really tests the strength of communication in teams. And Invictus being one, you know, the top team here, Trail of Torment actually got a lot of value for Xeno. Pretty unexpected how well that worked, actually. But I mean, as we've seen in like All Hallows League and other sets where we have Trail of Torment in play, it can be very effective. I mean, we saw Dan get jump scared, not when Trail of Torment was active, but rather like a very closed off space. Dan just completely got jump scared, and that worked so well for Xeno. But unfortunately, he wasn't able to really, get too much value out of that because Dan had safety right behind him. But I mean, it just proves that Invictus's comms have been really strong, and even in the 3v1, a fourth generator almost popped in such a ridiculously dominant situation for Xeno. But yes, 4K2, very strong result, and with securing that, Elysium looks like they have a very, very strong win condition to hold on to, and one that Invictus is going to need to fight tooth and nail for. But that being said, I almost expect Invictus to be bringing in Trail of Torment on their Myers as well.
It's going to be interesting here because you mentioned how it feels like a rather obtainable win condition for Elysium indeed. But I only can't help but imagine a world where, because again, Invictus sometimes just does Invictus things. If they drop this here, when we talk about the mental, MetalBro, I want to stick with you. Do you feel like there's a bounce back from that? Because it feels said too, you got to be walking into at this point, trial number 4, feeling like it's done and dusted. If somehow you fumble here, I mean, is there any recovery?
Well, I mean, Elysium can definitely take, some feelings of safety here because 4K2 is a very strong result on a Myers set. But if you're Invictus, I mean, this is something that you're going to need to really mentally prepare for because 4K3 is not going to be easy. It has been done before in the Cynic versus Oracle set. We had a 4K4 on Myers, so it's not impossible. It's not outside of the realm of possibilities here. But Invictus, their mental has to be a little bit under at the moment, considering how well Xeno performed. But we know Invictus. They're very strong on both killer and survivor side. Very, very strong. That being said, I imagine that whoever's going to be coming in for Myers, I'm imagining maybe Pedro or Nightlight, one of the two for sure, is going to need to come in with a very solid game plan and is going to need to execute it. And they're going to need to stick to that game plan and not let their emotions overcome them in this next trial.
I mean, it's going to be tough too, because it's not like you can exactly like rely even on like not like this is the best map to rely on a 3-gen anyways, with the way that they happen to spawn typically. But you don't even have the chance to be able to rely on that. So it does very much look like we could very well be going into that third trial all tied up here. We talked about it going in where Toby was mentioning, 8 hooks, kind of the average that we normally see. So 4K2, I don't know if I would necessarily say that we are. I feel like with the experience on the Invictus side, I don't know necessarily if the mental's in the dumps just quite yet. Maybe if they happen to have a blunder on another go round, but I guess the big thing or the big question that I would have as far as for you one more time, MetalBro, is for the survivors. I guess or maybe even Toby. We'll go send this to Toby first. Toby, what do you think the survivors like the game plan is to make sure that you're able to secure your 4 gens here?
I mean, you could go with the same strat Invictus tried to. Basically, you just go for stealthing early, playing relatively safe, trying to give the shape as less dog progress as possible, and just play it really, really safe. Go into safe spots where you know you have resources you can work with, and don't go down basically in the middle of the map where you can patrol a lot of gens and give the shape a free possibility to just camp you out early. That would be my suggestion.
Anything that you'd add on top of that, MetalBro, before we get ready to take to the fog here for trial number 4?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am going to say that I think that the Elysium survivors are going to need to have a game plan and stick to it. In the last trial, we saw that Invictus was having some trouble keeping, communicated efforts, in check. We saw a very early on head-on fumble by Kexo, unfortunately. I mean, anyone could have fallen for that. That happened specifically due to the fact that Kexo did not expect Xeno to start stalking instead of keep walking forward. That was a very lucky play by Xeno. He would have gotten head on there, but there were multiple times where that kind of communication effort really kind of fell flat. Like when Nightlight tried to come back and get the stun onto Xeno, but it just didn't work out for him. And like those kinds of things, they can't happen in a set like this because those are very fundamentals of these matches.
Well, let's go ahead and get ready to take it back to Larry's one more time. Remember, it was a 4K with 2 gens left standing. They almost saw that 4th gen pop, but almost ain't gonna cut it around these parts. It's gonna be Pedro out on the shape, trying to see if they can match or beat that win con. It's going to be quite a mountain to climb, so let's go ahead and send it over to our casters and get down and do what it do.
Yeah, welcome back, everyone. Quick housekeeping there on the DC. At the end of the previous trial, evidence was provided, and we found that it was a lag into a DC. Basically, didn't really matter because the survivor was eliminated anyway. Just sorting that out. No, it is still not allowed to DC intentionally in DBDLeague, so we just sorted that quickly in the background. Pedro is taking the responsibility, facing Marco, Pedro, Xeno, and Laser, and we see a little bit of the same strategy here, getting into tier 3, then trying to hide it. Now the problem is that I believe that Xeno, who picked the Michael with such confidence, was basically practicing that all week, so they might be a little bit better prepared than Invictus was.
Absolutely. Finding a chase onto Marco early, almost tier 2 now. And yeah, if you noticed, I noticed that the tier 3 didn't come through until very late into the trial last time, or at least it felt like it. It felt like they were playing those corners so nicely. Not really giving Xeno any time to talk, so I wonder how fast Pedro will get into that tier 3, or at least threaten the first down. And it seems like our survivors, they're giving him a lot of stalk, and look at that, he's almost already in his tier 3. This could potentially lead to something where maybe they don't expect it, and we could get an early down, which will set him up for success. I mean, we are looking at a 4K 3 wing condition. Pedro has got an absolute mountain to climb in terms of achieving that. So a goal early game will set him up. And yeah, we find chase on to Marco, who's playing this filler pallet, and he sends it through, gets the M1 tag. And I actually, looking at the add-ons, he's got one of the brown add-ons there, which increases stalk rate. So there's also that to take into consideration. So going for a stalk rate add-on there. Has the Judas Priest 2 for a bit more long-range stalk as well. So opting for stalk add-ons to get him into that that tier 3 faster. But yeah, not much pressure to speak of, but he will have the next healthy survivor in danger of dying pretty fast.
And we get the first generator already, and can tell the pressure is not as quick here as in the previous trial. We have our injury there, and we do have a little bit of panic arising soon with the tier 3 coming up. But we need to go for a little bit more on the side of Invictus. This will not be enough to reach the pallet. Unfortunately, Laser going down here. It's going to be hook stage number 1. Survivors will feel good about that, getting the first generator out of the way before it's going to be the regression with the pain res coming in here. Pedro makes sure that it's coming in now, and then we see the quick vault through the window, especially on tier 3. You can sometimes take a shortcut there a little bit, and now it will be interesting. Will potentially Elysium sacrifice a stage onto Laser? Never mind, we see the answer right there. Quick rescue. They want to have their 4 survivors spread across the objectives here. Throwing that pallet early. Xeno takes a ton of distance there. Pedro cannot follow that, would lose too much time, so we cycle back into the main room here. A little bit of regression, but tier 3 has expired, and all we got was basically this one hook stage that was instantly rescued, Zach. That doesn't feel like a lot of pressure at all.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Pedro stepping away from the hook there, and I believe that Zeno was pretty well positioned there to unhook. Anyway, oh no, the auto aim onto the shower there in the corner. We'll take the M1 anyway, but yeah, damn, like not enough value from the tier 3 now gives the survivors so much time to get through those gens, and I mean they only have to pop 4 gens to win the set. So the fact that Pedro is not able to get any form of pressure on an elimination or punish for the unhook is going to be devastating for him going into this mid-late game, and it's going to really set the survivors up for to take the win on the second set. But yeah, 3 injuries still on the board. Trail of Torment is on cooldown and it's still active. I don't know if it's a spectator bug not showing us the undetectable, but Marco actually not quite spotting Pedro there. We'll have this window vault. Doesn't look like he makes it. Oh my god, how did he get that? First vault in this. Pedro trying to opt for a stalk there, but some of these hits unfortunately not connecting. And that might have been an eruption proc and a couple of gens. Could have changed things. Trail of Torment now coming through, and that's going to be at least the tie condition secured. Dire, these survivors clearly locked in and they know what they're doing. Pedro is struggling. What do you think he needs to do now to bring this back?
Pedro needs a down right here, then basically with the tier 3, instantly leave that survivor in the corner, rush back towards the generators. What we also see in a difference, I feel like, is we don't get so much benefit from the perk combination compared to the previous trial, right? We have a lot less jump scares, we have a lot less chaos even unfolding, and I feel like this is where Myers and Ghostface both start to shine on Larry's and why they have been so strong in the past. It is the moment where you break the coordination of your opponent and where you basically cause a few unexpected downs, because every team is trying to follow a strategy. You work on this generator, I will take care of the unhook and so on. And once you break that coordination, fixing it and developing an alternative takes time, and time is the most important resource in DBD in general, but especially in competitive DBD. So every second that you gain from chaos, you can then use for generator protection and regression. And this is what doesn't work here. And I think it is the result of this tactical pick. As said, the teams had 2 protected picks at the start, 1 each, where no bans came out yet. And Elysium's protected pick was such an underrated killer that it was barely played in Season X. And they said, Michael is our pick. And if you announce that, you practice that, you go for that, and that's why they have 4 gens, and that's why they have 5 gens, and that's why they will go out of the door here, and that's why they gonna 1-1 in this first best of 7 of the grand final series, ladies and gentlemen. And that means we at least need more sets today than just the 4 that we were originally looking forward to. We will at least go as far as the Spirit now. But coming up next is the Houndmaster, ladies and gentlemen, a killer who has been very controversial up on release, especially in the community. Controversial in terms of what's the best strategy. Quickly it was discovered you really let the survivor together with the dog wait until they're breaking free to take advantage of the hindered effect and so on. So now we have the perfect strategies. Now the Houndmaster is grand final ready, and we are looking forward to take a look.
What a trial. I mean, we walked into this knowing that the 2K 5 stage or whatever it was going to be like, or the two dens left with the 5K. Sorry, I had that backwards. It was going to be hard to beat, but Pedro still came out and was able to put on a pretty darn good show, if I gotta say so. I mean, does a great job of being able to at least try and hold off with the pressure at some times. But Elysium survivors, again, this is their pick for a reason. Showed up and showed out, limiting the amount of stages they handed on over. I mean, MetalBro, what were you seeing there?
So what I was seeing in that match was Elysium's communication was just really on point. I mean, when you don't have a tunnel out ready to go, right? Your communication on the survivor side is at its strongest. You have 4 different survivors who are all able to communicate with each other and tell each other what the status on the killer is, where he's at, what he's doing, etc., etc. If you don't have a tunnel out, you are punished for attempting to use stealth. And that's, I think, what made a huge separation in Zeno's game and Pedro's game. Not only that, but we also saw that Pedro swung a lot of times and actually missed hits quite a few different times. I mean, that's got to be very punishing on, the killer side of things. So, there's just so many things in that match that really, unfortunately, just did not help out Pedro at all on the Myers side. And Elysium's communication just looked so undefeated in that match. They were on point. Their communication was just flawless. They were playing this so well. And this is exactly why I'm saying that I'm having some faith in Elysium. They are in the top 2 teams competing for the number 1 spot. And this is exactly a showcase of that.
They definitely put on a show there in that last set. I mean, Toby, when we talked about it going into the shape set, you mentioned 8 stages was like the average. Elysium showing the extremes on both sides, right? I mean, having a very impressive killer performance, a very strong survivor performance as well. Do you think that was more on what Elysium was doing, right? Or do you feel like it was more about Invictus not being up to snuff on what seems to be Elysium's number 1 pick?
I think it was essentially a mix of both. You really could see that Elysium was well prepared to play this shape set, and that their communication was simply just better. Especially on those indoor maps, it's really, really hard to communicate against a self killer, to call out exactly where he's at, and Elysium was doing that absolutely flawlessly. They could have gone for even less stages, but they already knew they secured the win with those 4 stages and 2 fresh hooks. But if they really wanted to, they could have reduced that to even 2 stages, if you ask me.
Well, now we look forward to set number 3, the Houndmaster. Before we jump into the fog here, tell us what's the kind of the average performance that we've seen for Houndmaster thus far.
The average performance for the Houndmaster is basically around 7 stages, a tiny bit more. But one of the interesting facts is that you usually get all your gens done against the Houndmaster. It's very, very rare that a Houndmaster is able to defend one of her generators in the later stages of the trial. So we should see all 5 gens popping, but depending on how the trial is going, there are 7 stages or even less most of the time.
Well, it's time to find out which of these 2 dogs has more bite than bark. We're back off to the fog for trial number 5. We're off to the comp tower, baby. It's the Houndmaster. Let's go ahead and take another trip back into the fog.
Thank you so much, guys. And I have a special guest to introduce again. That is Egdar. Fire alarm in the apartment has been solved. Egdar, welcome back. You're joining at a perfect timing here.
Yes, thank you. If I had a nickel for every time that happened during a DBDL broadcast, I'd have 2, which is far too many nickels to have in a situation like this. Nightlight's going to open things up on Houndmaster here. Set now tied up 1-1. Still anyone's game thus far. Playing with the newly reworked, and I'd argue newly buffed knockout to hinder survivors around those drop pallets. Nightlight really, really strong on this killer. Has been playing him since the first couple of matches this season. Is very proficient in this killer's gameplay. Not quite proficient enough to land the first initial snipe onto Oscar, but you have plenty more opportunities to do that as time goes on here. You're gonna see, is there a balanced landing play coming out? No, you take the injury and you path yourself right back over to the shack. You have to be very careful dropping pallets against this killer. Obviously, a drop pallet does not guarantee you safety, and especially if you drop it in their face, it is in fact the opposite. You know, there are some killers where you don't really want to drop pallets against them because they might hit you. You don't drop a pallet against a Houndmaster because she will hit you. Simple as that. Oftentimes, Oscar doing a great job of dodging these initial hits onto the dog and actually able to make these tiles and loops anyway. Often it is the risk that you end up putting yourself in Now we can see that someone is here. This is a weakness of the Houndmaster. Altruism works very effectively. The dog can be immediately pushed off by another survivor, so hit tanking can be very effective, especially because things like a rapid brutality or save best for last aren't particularly popular on this killer. However, Oscar going to be caught out through the door, just trying to buy as much time as possible. Now, I'm interested to see, does Nightlight go for a basement hook or a pain resonance? Looks like the pain res is gonna be the play, so tries to favor the regression instead of that early basement control. First generator gonna be popping now, so Nightlight not quite able to get the pain res in time for this one, but I can imagine the survivors working on a different generator which has been now thoroughly regressed.
And the survivors need to make sure now that they have a good time around the main building here. You don't want to have Zeno getting downed before Oscar has been pulled, but the strategy seems to be interrupting the potential unhook that is coming through here. Great read by our killer. And sending the dog a little bit too far. That's not going to be a threat for Silhey, who we also welcome back to the roster of Elysium. Took a little bit of a break now finally, and good to see them again on the roster just in time for the grand final. Zeno moving in to take care of Oscar. That requires 2 survivors at this point though, so Nightlight definitely with a good pressure here, making sure that the survivors do not get anything for free, and at the same time even able to spread the pressure as far as that less resources are being put into the objectives here. So a little bit of a win-win for Nightlight. Oscar about to go into the second stage. Will be interesting to see if they actually allow this to happen. Nightlight suspecting someone to be around, but Egdar, that is going to be the struggle for Oscar. That must be punished with some generators though, but that's where I start having some concerns, because there was not so much time to get objectives done.
Well, put it bluntly, they didn't get the objectives done, and as I said there, Silly able to dodge out onto the dog, but often it means distancing yourself away from tiles. Still able to get to the shack window, however, and now that the unhook has come through onto Oscar, Nightlight knows that it is hunting time, needs to find Oscar, needs to find him immediately, but the reset is actually able to come through. Marco gives a hit for essentially nothing, actually gives his life over instead. Nightlight, with a Scourge Hook so nearby, it seems like it's going to favor just utilizing the pain resonance here regardless. And not actually able to stop that generator from popping there. Goodness gracious. Deadlock came in at the last second to deny this gen over in the corner. So I was making some decent progress, and even though there was regression from the pain res, they were able to stop the tunnel out. Also, a small note, it seems like Oscar's pain res charge wasn't used, so I don't think there were any progress generators by the time Oscar was actually put on that pain resonance hook.
Off we go again with this almost chaos of survivors that we have up here. Zeno and Oscar both swarming around. We would rather see them on the generators at the moment. Third generator coming out. Now it looks a little bit more sorted though, because we have the one survivor in chase. We also have a potential protection around. Zeno will definitely not give away Oscar for free. We already see him running in. The Nightlight struggling to get the pressure onto the survivor here. So yeah, back to the generators, and we need a little bit more generator defense, Egdar.
Yes, it's been odd where it seems like at some points there's, I mean, this altruism sometimes pays off and sometimes it doesn't, and Zeno somehow takes that hit instead of Marco. A huge hit tank that comes through there. Marco able to get over to this and has actually healed up from, it must have been the second wind or something like that to keep Marco healthy from earlier. And now Nightlight is in a precarious position because you wanted Marco so bad. The hit tanks came through, and then finally when you had the man in your crosshairs that you really wanted to hunt down, they had suddenly been healed up by some kind of magic. Now Marco is here for the altruism play, and again, it doesn't really matter if Marco takes hit because Zeno is able to make distance. Sile and Oscar, meanwhile, are on the other side of the map, most likely, continuing to pressure out these generators. Elysium are putting on a survivor masterclass right now in altruism.
Yeah, absolutely. Altruism on top for Elysium here, and I've never seen Nightlight actually struggle with the Houndmaster so much in the entire Season 10. Houndmaster Nightlight was, for me, always the guaranteed 4K, right? Something where he's entering with his puppy and just making sure that the Survivor team has a difficult time. Well, after this firecracker, we know why he's called El Marco. Okay, that was mean.
Unreal,
That was
dude.
mean. He's a W, Marco. He had so many great chases. I apologize. Even though I will keep giggling about that one. Second stage for Marco. Oscar Silhey gonna take care of Zeno here. One more gen. Will be interesting. What's the strategy for that? Quick rescue, it seems like. They could even go for the reset if they really want to with 2 people. But the totem is going to be prioritized, so we can basically take care of ourselves. And if there's not something crazy happening now on the Survivor side, I feel like we will enter the end game.
Yeah, something insane has come out. Like, you could hear the deadlock on that corner generator. You could hear how insanely, progressed that gen was. Now Sile in an awkward spot, because at the edge, you would have loved to drop. Sile is the bounce landing survivor, I believe, but in a spot like that, having been hindered up by the dog, it would not have been a particularly good idea. Now the dodges are coming through, and guess what? Someone is back. They've managed to trade another healthy survivor to come in and begin taking hits.
This might be really, really bad for Invictus here if this continues like this. 4 stages on 2 survivors. Someone send help. Not Elysium, for Nightlight I meant.
Oh,
but
no.
Elysium is taking my wish and sends help for the survivor. Oscar is going to be almost out of the door here, but even if he would not make it out, that is fine, because that is only 1 more stage. Nothing to worry about, really. Great attempt here by Nightlight, trying to block the door, making sure that he's locked down a little bit, and he does catch Oscar. 1 more stage. The answer is no, because the entire squad is around, and that is Nightlight left behind with 4 stages. Ladies and gentlemen, it is 4 stages on Houndmaster, the set that Invictus has chosen. This is bad news for the entire Invictus fan group. Q, take it away, please.
Wow, wow, wow. Elysium's survivors continue to show up and show out here in our first series of our grand finals for DBDLeague season number 10. There it is. We're getting ready to go back to Cold Tower one more time and talk about a performance here from Elysium's survivor. The one thing I feel like really stood out to me for Nightlight, had an opportunity to be able to tunnel out Oscar and then ended up not doing so. Obviously, it's easy for us in the booth to talk about that and call it a mistake, but I kind of want to look for a second opinion here, MetalBro. Do you feel like the tunnel out there could have completely changed things, or was this just all about Elysium's dominance on the survivor side?
You know, I think it's a bit of both, honestly. I mean, personally for me, and you might agree with this is some of the best Elysium survivor play I have ever seen. Very strong body blocks and protecting Oscar from LaMarco, and honestly, every single survivor was very, very important in that whole exchange. But having to switch from Oscar to Marco, I think really gave Elysium a very strong edge on that match, as well as 99ing that 1 generator just to counter deadlock. I mean, this is some incredible survivor play and probably the best I've seen out of Elysium, in my opinion.
Yeah, Elysium's definitely been looking good, but I feel like that there's almost something else that felt like they took to a different level in that last trial there. Zach, what were you seeing?
I was seeing them just playing together in nearly every chase. Houndmaster excels at kind of locking down 1 survivor, but when you swarm like 2, at least 2 survivors to kind of like neutralize the killer power, like she really struggles, because essentially like she can only, you turn her into an M1 killer, like the body blocks, the altruism that we saw, even leading up to Silhey's chase in the end game as well. Like we had mid-game protection onto Marco. He they essentially untrapped him, and it gave him his second wind so that he could stay healthy as well, and just essentially the deadlock and then the gen progression. I don't know. They are so locked in today. It seems to me, and you can just see how coordinated they are in this Houndmaster set. But yeah, I mean, Elysium just absolutely showing their team play in this set is really nice to see.
As much as we know that it ain't over till it's over. I mean, we saw that in series number 1 today. And yeah, this is a long series here. I mean, a best of 7. We're only two sets through that, right? But I feel like for me, when you talk about being able to ride the wave of momentum, if we see Elysium win the first 3 in a row, we could very well see ourselves 4-0 done and dusted in series number 1. Let's go ahead and take off to the fog here for trial number 6 out on the Cold Tower.
The Cold Tower, the El Clasico Comp Tower, a lot of people call this map as well. We just saw the strategies that are available to the survivors in our showcase video. So let's see which one of them is the right one for Invictus here, because we do need a perfect survivor trial. Almost 5 stages will be enough. 4 stages in case we catch 3 individual survivors here. That's really not enough. That is essentially the equivalent to 1 kill and 1 more stage for already being where Nightlight has been with the previous result here. So let's see. Xeno needs to bring it home, and we see a save the best for last. Egdar, that's a perk that you do not expect in a grand final on a Houndmaster, and yet it is so perfectly Xeno style.
You don't see it often, but I see the vision. What we just saw, what we just saw against Nightlight is how the teamwork and the hit tanking from the survivors is the weakness of this killer when it is done effectively. And there aren't many ways to overcome that. Save Best for Last is one of those ways, especially with your first chase coming through onto the Obsession. Anyone who this is now your tunnel out, right? And anyone who now tries to protect the Obsession is just going to be inadvertently making the killer stronger. Not by a lot at first, but it's gonna add up over time. I also want to highlight that that is a very quick first down, 1 minute and 16 seconds, which is actually faster than the first down 133 that Nightlight was able to obtain. So already, I can't say I'm familiar with Xeno playing the Houndmaster. It's certainly not the killer that I would associate him with. But if he can put in a damn good performance on it all the same, then who am I to judge?
Yeah, and so far it's looking good for Xeno though, right? 5 generators. We remember in the previous trial we exchanged 1 for 1 basically. So Xeno a little bit quicker here. Spitz making sure that the dog doesn't cause any harm here. Quick sacrifice of the pallet there. We catch the incoming rescuer though. Xeno showing a good attempt here, spreading the pressure onto multiple survivors in different locations. So that's going to be beneficial, and Spitz now a little bit working as a bait. On the other side is the rescuer. 2-man save needed. That means that Kexo is the only one who's right now working on the generators here, and now the save the best for last is actually being built up. That was a ton of hits here due to the double save, and Spitz, whoa, wonderful dodge there with the locker. That was really needed, because a double down with this win condition would have basically been a GG right there.
Yeah, but already things are basically looking like a GG for Invictus, if we're being completely honest. Dan is going to go on the hook now. This is going to be the second stage. Obviously, potential for 4 to be gained on that. Pedro and Spitz are injured and therefore vulnerable. And Rancor, late game put there, but it gave you a bit of value in notifying where the survivors roughly are. Means that you instantly have a read on where Spitz can be. And yes, this is a relatively strong pallet. Well, depending on how it's played, for Xeno, not particularly well, but it's a very strong pallet, sure, but eventually Spitz is going to be caught. He's actually caught through the window. He's barely able to make another one of these fillers. You can see, I believe, Kexo is actually positioning to try and help out in this exchange, the dog goes slightly wide onto Spitz there. And yeah, Kexo gonna take a hit. But Xeno's just giggling to himself right now. He doesn't, they're like, they don't know that I have saved the best for last. They're just making me stronger as time goes on.
Yeah, and that's something though that latest on stack 5 you should be able to watch out for and to call out, but you also don't really have a choice, right? And this is the crazy thing. Based on the win condition, you have to take hits for one another. And you need to make sure that you keep your team members safe. And while doing what's absolutely necessary, you basically build up that save the best for last. Obviously, Xeno couldn't know that before, but it is now. It needs to be considered with that win condition that they basically have no choice but making Xeno stronger with the save the best for last here. Xeno now needs to make sure that he doesn't give the team too much of time in order to go for, wow, just in the final moment before the vault is coming through down onto a Kexo here. That's going to be hook stage number 3, and that's also the 3rd individual survivor. So the next hook stage on anyone is the win for Elysium here.
Xeno can just stay in front of Kexo, but honestly figures that that's not the most efficient strategy while there are gens to check on in the meantime. Pedro in a tough position. Spitz actually didn't get reset there. It was only Dan who received the benefit of that healing. The gens are flying from the side of Invictus. I think if this were any normal win condition, we would be seeing Invictus's praises right now. They've denied the tunnel out. They've split gen pressure very, very effectively. It looks like they're gonna be able to save Kexo before that final winning hook stage is about to come out. But then the question is, well, who do they send for it, right? Like, they have to do a perfect 2-man save here, and no one can go down in the aftermath of it. If they send one person, they get traded and they lose. If they send Pedro, you're not sending Pedro, he's injured. If they let Kexo go to second, they lose. There are a billion ways for Invictus to lose this one, and only one universe in which they win. And I don't think this is the universe that we're in.
And here we go again, ladies and gentlemen, trying to get the entire squad into safety, but Dan doesn't make it anywhere, unfortunately. They really tried and they really attempted it, and the result that is about to happen might look a lot worse on paper, because obviously the survivors need to throw everything in now to reach the win condition, because either this or nothing, basically, right? Final chance. But that is Elysium taking the 2nd set in a row here, basically 2-1 now. That's a crazy work. And after it looked so much like Invictus coming out, their first set, their win, Elysium is showing us that you should not count them out here. They are ready to fight.
Chat Gamble is in absolute shambles right now. I think I checked it at the start of the stream, and it was something akin to like a 75-25 split in favor of Invictus. Elysium massively upsetting the odds to go 2-1 up in this series here. I'm sure the analysts will have plenty to say about that. And yeah, remember, even if we were in the rhythm of, okay, well, Invictus went on their pick, and Elysium went on their pick, and then we just go all the way back and forth, the whole distance, the whole 9 yards, or in this case, the whole 7 yards, 7 sets that we're going to be playing. That trend has been thoroughly broken. Elysium are doing extraordinarily well for themselves right now, and going 2-1 up, even being up in a series against Invictus. Like, I'd like to be fact-checked on this, but I don't think that's happened this entire season. We know that Invictus have not lost a set, but I also don't think they've ever been down in a set before.
And here we go, even into the end game, ladies and gentlemen, as a final celebration, and saying at least we do not get 4K'd with the generator still standing. But that is a crazy win here, and we're going to throw it over to the analyst desk, because we want to hear now, how is that impacting the rest of this best of 7, guys?
Well, first off, that's huge. What a great performance. I mean, yeah, you didn't have much of a finish line where you were needing to cross, but to be able to come out and really flex here, find the 4K, Has to have you feeling good if you're Elysium. Also, as we had heard our casters talking about, puts Elysium up 2-1 as far as the series score. But before we start breaking things down, let's not forget we are moving forward within our series. So how about we go and look at where we're going to be off to here next, as we are going off to set number 4. We're changing realms. We're off to Azerov's resting place for Wrecker's Yard for the Legion. Let's find out all about it. And before we get off to Wrecker's Yard, we got to talk about that performance on the coal tower here, because my goodness gracious, dominance felt like the key. It definitely felt like we saw a really good performance in the early game. Zach, talk me through things here a little bit.
Yeah, we kind of initially have to like realize that this is a low stage game, so your early game is going to be the thing that you want to prioritize and being like solid, right? You don't want to give up any pressure early on. You want good chases, and for me, I felt like Xeno had like a really early down, still at 5 gens remaining, no real pressure on the survivor side, and so when Pedro was hooked, Xeno basically knew that he had enough time to secure second at the very least, which is exactly what happened. And then you kind of lead into that sort of situation where you've got a death hook survivor, you still got 3 or 4 gens left to go, and I think that the early game really made them struggle in the lead up to trying to secure the win for this set, especially because Houndmaster is one of those unique killers where she can essentially stop 2-man saves with her dog. You get the second survivor just essentially trapped up by the dog, and then you're forcing the other survivor to trade. And when you can't give any, I mean, the idea of 2-man saves is to not trade, right? But Houndmaster is one of those unique killers that really can prevent that. So yeah, like I super unfortunate early game from Invictus. Leading up to the mid game, I think they played really well. Like they didn't reset or anything, and they pumped out those gens as fast as they could. But yeah, for me, that early down really kind of set the tone for the rest of it.
Definitely helped set the tone, but it felt like, for me, Stabiffle seemed to put in a bunch of work, and it wasn't so much the case in the trial prior to that. I mean, what worked better in this trial versus the last when it came to Stabiffle here, MetalBro?
Well, I mean, I would say for starters that 3-man unhook party was just, it kind of backfired, because in theory, it seemed like a really, really solid idea at the time, right? The next hook stage is the loss for Invictus, but with Xeno cooking with Stabiffle, save the best for last, I mean, this was just like a golden opportunity for him to really farm stacks of save the best for last, and it worked out incredibly well for him. I mean, we saw a down come in just moments later. He had many stacks of save the best for last. It was really working so well for him in that match. But like, not only that, but also I wanted to talk about the fact that Invictus was just put into such a lose-lose situation when Xeno started holding that very dominant position. There really wasn't much of anything for Invictus to really do besides just not die. I mean, that's a horrible position to be put in, right?
It is definitely a horrible position to be put in. That is for sure. You know what else is a horrible position to be put in? Going down 3-1 in a best of 7 series. And that is exactly what Invictus is looking to do as we shift our focus over to Azerov's resting place for trial number 7. We're going to be seeing some Legion action. I know I'm excited. I hope you're excited. Let's go ahead and take another trip here back into the fog.
Thank you to the Analysts once more. Legion in Comp DBD. Well, how about that? I remember back in the day, there was some theory crafting. It was some of the East Asian teams from places like Japan and China who were very insistent that Legion was actually the best comp killer. Now, the West very much disagrees. This is why this is one of our first times seeing Legion Season X. It has been played once or twice. Aside from that, it's just been Elysium suddenly picking it for the playoffs. So I'm trying to think what the plan is here, right? It seems like by not hitting Dan here, it seems like you want to get hits with the power. So you're going to play it as traditionally as possible to try and chain as many injuries together as you can. But honestly, that's kind of at odds with how you generally want to play competitive matches, which is getting rid of one survivor as soon as humanly possible. Now, you're going to be trying to charge up your power as much as possible. You're going to be utilizing Bamboozle, and often we can see Dan just sort of waiting at the tiles here, just waiting. Because, yeah, if you force the killer into playing regular tiles without power, it's just an M1 killer. At that point, you might as well just play Myers. Now, the iridescent pin is going to be a good add-on to have in your back pocket. It's going to allow you to insta-break those pallets whenever you vault them, but obviously that is conducive on having that power charged up, and you're able to psych Dan out, force him to get the vault back before you can actually secure the first hook stage. Relatively, I would imagine that for Legion, it's a relatively quick first down.
I absolutely love, though, what Dan did there. He read Xeno's mind in a lot of these moves. Like, Xeno was trying to take over multiple times and then go and block the pallet, and just Dan basically just body blocked him before. So that was like Dan 2 steps ahead. Which was really incredible to see there. I feel like it was, yeah, not the longest chase, yet a good one. Definitely a nice start here. And the plan that Xeno had with using the power to get a lot of injuries at the beginning, that also was denied by Dan and didn't really work out. So he did not only something for his own chase time, but something for the entire team. Back we go, though, onto the rescuer here. Dan is taking a deep wound as well, and off we go onto Spitz this time, who doesn't have a pallet around, so that's just going to be a quick down right here. Good for Invictus that we don't have the elimination strategy being successfully enforced by Xeno here, but I think Xeno isn't too sad about the fact that it's now going to be the next survivor, also progressing towards that Grim later on to block the generators by a significant duration there. Just last comment onto the Legion. The fact that Elysium is coming into this grand final with a Myers that is barely picked before in the season and the Legion that got barely picked is definitely speaking its own language, basically.
Realistically, that might have been the reason that we're seeing some of these kind of slightly out there killers. The fact is they're out there. Obviously, Invictus have proven themselves on so many killers, things like Singularity, things like Houndmaster, so you think, we're just going to put them on something that they're not comfortable with, that they're not used to playing, and it actually seems to work out exactly like that. Dan, with nerves of steel at this pallet, remember that instantly dropping it without stunning the killer, it means that it is just going to be vaulted and broken. In a corner like this, you wouldn't have been able to make distance anywhere at all. Nightlight's here to distract for a moment. So a hit has been tanked, but hit tanking against a Legion is a term used a lot more loosely. It's not like the guy struggles to injure people, and it's going to have to be some distance made here. The vault actually fails from Dan? Excuse me? His legs just gave out from underneath him.
Unfortunate Dan going down here, but at least drag the Legion towards the edge of the map, making sure that we have a little bit of extra time. That's unfortunately the fun buzz being a little bit fun there.
The unfun buzz.
Yeah, the unfun buzz when you vaulted at the moment from the... You cannot even say wrong direction. You're just unlucky, basically, based on how it spawns, and then you're basically not able to actually vault the window. Teams are aware of this bug, though, and unfortunately they take the risk on that window on their own credit at the moment. Spitz second stage here, back onto the hook. 4 generators still standing and everyone injured, typical for a Legion. 3 gens now, but I would say Xeno can be really happy here.
Yeah, this is a really good spot for a Legion to be in, having Spitz dead on hook, having every survivor injured, and to be honest, they're just going to stay the entire game injured. And this is the advantage with Legion. Now, often you do not expect Legion to get a down particularly quickly. The fact that the first down was obtained in just over a minute is it's always good, right? But it's really good for Legion especially because you kind of deal with the one weakness, the Legion's ability in a chase. That's not a problem anymore, and everyone stays injured for the whole match, generally because, like, yeah, the ease at which you can injure people means that it is just a time waster to remain healthy against Legion. This means that an unhook is really dangerous to get, which means that I cannot imagine that Spitz is actually saved here. That means Xeno gets a kill relatively early on with 2 generators remaining, and he's able to contest the Shack generator before it's fully completed. Now is able to catch up. Now recently Legion did get a small buff to that fatigue, not going to last quite as long, but it feels like it's played this palette very, very well. And sometimes your M1 killer fundamentals just going to have to be enough to force the situation here. Nightlight going to eat a hook. I believe first hook of the game means that we are closer to seeing Grim Embrace be fully activated, but even then it's going to kick these survivors off the gen for a moment.
And it is time for Invictus to really stand up now, right? And like here, where Invictus fans noise in chat, we need to say a little bit. Where are they? Set 1 worked out as picked and planned, but what's happening after that? The Houndmaster already slipped out of your hands, and the Legion. Yeah, that's Elysium's pick, but we need something here. It would be a 3-1 otherwise. Match point for Elysium after this set. We need to start offering something crazy, something that really gets us back on the feet here. Something like this, for example, Rocket doing a good job, safety behind that Paladin now, taking the distance over to this tile, faking that he would go for the window to mislead Xeno a little bit, and then really having access to that pallet. Well done, that results in a generator. Egdar, this is how we need to continue now.
Rocket's having a spectacular chase right now, but also that is a disgusting setup. That pallet, no matter what way you run it, you can chain it into a window. Now, Rocket down there, Xeno has a brief think about what the next course of action is, decides that it is going to be a hook. That is the 4th stack of Grim Embrace. Not entirely sure how progressed these generators are, but they're going to be blocked regardless. This is now a long, long time that the survivors cannot do anything about their win condition here. Dan's been caught out, is going to be able to make over to the Shack window here. Don't believe that the pallet is available, and Xeno does have Bamboozle here, so can just completely shut down Shack. Dan recognizes this, so he's going to move over to this 4 lane instead, and should be able to play it pretty well with just normal, decent fundamentals, especially because you still have the pallet on the other side to work with as well. But it's not going to be dropped, and Xeno gets the down anyway. Grim Embrace is still up. Nightlight and Rocket cannot do anything right now except twiddle their thumbs until this hook comes out. Wait.
And here we go.
Dan got free.
Nightlight gonna be with the final gen. Yeah, Rocket help. There must have been.
I'm sorry, Dyer, but I just want to pay attention to the fact that Rocket used head-on to save Dan.
Yep, he did, and unfortunately it slipped the screen. I know who is not having a nice night tonight. That's our producer. I feel very bad. You're trying to give an overview, and in that moment they pull a head-on stun. Unfortunate there. We apologize, ladies and gentlemen, but crazy work by Invictus here. There's Nightlight again. Unfortunately, I had to pull back away from the generator here into the corner, but you can see the currency of DBD, we mentioned it before, is time. And even circling around the rock, even if you think, why would I circle around this rock? Well, it's 7 extra seconds. And when you try to fight the final generator, and if you know that your team is working on the final objective, then these 7 seconds make the difference between outs or 4K, and Invictus does pull it in a trial where it looked for a very long time like this might be a 4K. Very important comeback for Invictus. Great to see that. Great to see this being successful. Thanks to Rocket here. Huge shout out for that save. Look at them lurking there if they can get a save in the distance. That's going to be Dan and Nightlight moving out of the door here. That's not the ideal, because the ideal survivor who to escape is now being hooked into the basement, but it's 10 stages if Nightlight and Dan escape, and given how it looked during the mid game, you can be very happy with how it turned out.
Oh yeah, it was an absolutely ridiculous comeback. That save, that head-on by Rocket at the very end, changed the momentum of this game. We were talking about, you know, where are the Invictus survivors? They're still the best in the world. They're still proving it. But ultimately, 10 stages is still very respectable, especially for a Legion. Did not think that... I did not foresee that happening today. So I'm going to hand it over to the analysts, who are going to have some thoughts on that series.
I'll tell you what, I feel like I don't get to watch Legion too often, and I do feel like that was quite the master class in that last trial. I mean, really being able to do a great job of being able to keep everyone pressure on a lot of people, not just in the fact of injuries, but being able to take a lot of the resources out of the way as well. I'm kind of curious from your perspective there, Zach. What was the big thing that Xeno was really doing right?
Yeah, I think it was definitely the use of his Legion button. Basically, if you noticed, he went into power and he essentially spam vaulted the pallets whenever they were dropped, and he was able to use that so frequently and also in a way that kind of zoned the survivors. He had bamboozle as well as a perk, kind of in combination, to just kind of neutralize pallets really fast, but then also shut down loops with that bamboozle. And he was also zoning people away in a way that essentially, like, they couldn't really, like, he would dead zone people immediately, shut down a loop, zone them away into a side of a map, and then essentially force the down. And he did that in every single chase. It's such a massive amount of pressure. It was actually a strategy he used. I think Egdar alluded to the East versus West showcase that was hosted by Hence, and that same strategy was used in that showcase. And so, like, it's such an oppressive way to play Legion, and it makes it so that you are set up for success in these chases, and you're not always like going to be at risk of maybe like the body blocks, which is usually kind of how teams shut down Legion. So yeah, for me it was all in like his playstyle and how he utilized those add-ons / perks for me that really led to this result.
Well, I mean, I feel like if you're able to keep everyone injured, but then you start taking away resources, the simple response would be to just start healing up so you can take more hits, right, MetalBro?
Absolutely. I mean, we saw that coming in with the other add-on, the Legion button, the blue add-on. You know, anytime that survivors self-mend when that add-on is in play, they become broken. And I think that did a lot too. I mean, it really discourages healing, which keeps all the survivors injured all match long. And I think that's exactly why the survivors of Invictus recognized that saving Spitz there would be very dangerous. Another thing that I noticed that Xeno did very, very right is using Feral Frenzy for mobility. We saw that in the very beginning of the match, where he was already rushing at the very start of the match. It was pretty incredible work right there, and we saw it used several times over as well. I mean, it's just a very exceptional use of the Legion's power.
We've seen that Elysium has continued to pick these niche picks, and well, they've been definitely producing over on the killer side. Now it's going to be up to Elysium over on the survivor side to try and continue to hammer things home and build upon this lead over Invictus. Can Pedro potentially shut him down? Let's go ahead and figure out as we take another trip back into the fog.
Thank you, guys. Back we go onto the Wrecker's Yard with the Legion. Not expecting that I would ever say that in a grand final that we go with the Legion, at least not in set 4. But here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Pedro has time now to prove himself against Zeno, Oscar, Marco, and Pedro. And now we will see how well Elysium did their homework preparing this killer. Obviously, we are expecting a lot. It was their surprise pick together with the shape. So not only on the killer side, I expect some unique strategies. I also expect that to happen on the survivor side.
I think unique is the name of the game, to be honest. No one was expecting a Legion. No one was expecting the performances to be so strong. No one was expecting, a head-on play for Invictus, but everything happens for a reason, right? Pedro, going to be adjusting the build a little bit. Scratch Ruler Brown add-on increases the recovery time of the Feral Frenzy instead of the blue pin add-on that we saw earlier, which puts survivors into the broken state after they have mended. Thanatophobia as well means, this is like the go-to for a lot of Legions, just like casually. You injure a lot of people, therefore you get the slowdown. It's also going to force survivors into an odd spot if the fourth injury ever comes through, because all of a sudden, generally, you don't want to heal against a Legion. It's so easy to cleanse. But if you don't do that, remember that the fourth stack of Thanatophobia is the most valuable one, and it's going to cause some immense slowdown for the generators going forward. Marco going to go down in the corner here, made some pretty decent distance and some pretty decent time. 128, so roughly the same time roughly the same amount of time, slightly longer by 15 seconds than what Zeno was able to manage on the killer side, but ultimately still relatively on track. Every second can make a difference, but at this stage, I would not cry about 13 seconds.
Absolutely, yeah, it's pretty much balanced out here. I would agree with you there. Difficulty for both Legions so far is getting the injuries across the board at the beginning. We've seen it in both trials, pretty much being denied there. And we move forward to the generator over here. Unfortunately, not able to interrupt it. That's going to be punishing because we moved so far away in order to defend the generator, which then didn't work out. We now also lost the control over the unhook. So Elysium actually in a better position here. I don't want to say that it looks super dark for Invictus, because then they would need a nightlight in order to recover, but it's definitely not looking good.
I hate you so much. Anyway, also, I want to pay attention. The survivors are doing a really good job of staying apart. That is how a Legion likes to operate, and that's how a Legion thrives, when the survivors will clump together and you chain injury after injury after injury. Worst case scenario, you get an instant down. Now, survivors of this caliber, I would be shocked if that happened in any capacity, but it's still a risk that you have to be accepting of. Elysium survivors right now, they're playing so apart to the point where I don't think I've seen Pedro get a Feral Frenzy hit and then have any other killer instincts trigger within the vicinity. Everyone is playing on complete opposite sides, complete opposite areas of the map. They actually did take the opportunity to heal up Marco earlier, so they know about the Thanatophobia and they've made their choice. They're gonna delay some time in healing up just so they can keep their gens, and keep their gens they do. Zeno pumps this corner gen out, and this is some phenomenal progress. Crazy work from Zeno there, but you kind of locked into a bit of a 50-50 choice when the killer has that iridescent button add-on. Make it over to another pallet. Pedro's recharged the power again, going to instantly break the pallet once more with the vault, but you get over to Shaq. Pedro, of course, is running the bamboozle, so Shaq not going to be quite as strong as it otherwise would be, especially with the pallet gone now. Both the window and the pallet can be denied. I'm thinking the only thing that can really save Pedro now is there a good 3-gen setup? I have noticed that all the generators that have been completed are on the top side of the map. It does look like Pedro has a somewhat defendable setup.
It is, yeah, and this is the hope, right? A little bit of defense now is needed, because Elysium looks like they already want to start set 5. They are already setting up the lobby for it, basically. And you need to make sure now that you really keep them longer into the trial, because we do need to make sure that some time is being earned here. We cannot let them go through the generators like this. We require 11 stages after all, and we have 2 at the moment. Now, everyone who is paying attention in math class knows that 2 stages is pretty far away from 11 stages, so we need some extra time in this trial. 9 stages is nothing that you just collect on the fly while the game is progressing. So we need to get regression into the gens. For that, we need to spread some injuries. We need to make sure that we keep them busy with some unhooks. Unfortunately though, Egdar, for the fact that we have a Legion on our hand who is like one of the #1 killers chaining injuries together, this Elysium survivor team looks pretty healthy.
They are so far away. There is no possibility for Pedro to actually use the strength of the power right now. Pedro is nowhere near the survivors when one of them eats a hit, and they're doing a phenomenal job of splitting themselves up. Like, even if Pedro gets injured here, which even if that happens is honestly, I would question it at that point. Just barely not able to make that pallet. And you can see, of course, we're going to see we're going to see Pedro go back to this middle gen because he has to defend it, right? But also, like, no one's there. Because the moment that there is even the slightest amount of risk to the survivors, they just leave.
Yeah, and this is what we talked about at the beginning of the trial, right? I feel like the circle kind of concludes here. We can see that this team specifically prepared for the Legion. They are not just picking Shape and Legion, one of the rarest killers of Season 10, in order to just do something with them. They have a clear plan, clean strategy, and even a triple up party in the shack, as it seems like, to make sure that the final... Ah, no, this is another one. Okay.
That's how good their gen progress is. It looks like they're tripling up. That's insane.
It's synchronized, basically. This is the new era of competitive DBD, where the survivors are synchronizing their pressure. But yeah, with that being said, the end game cannot be avoided here. And either we now get a speed run with the slugging survivors, because we somehow need to get 7 more stages, including a fresh hook, only for the tie.
Yeah, is that going to happen? Let's be honest with ourselves. No, it isn't. The gate's already been open. You know for a fact that Zeno, Marco, and Pedro are all congregating over there, and they're going to be leaving. Who would have predicted this? Everyone who told me that gambling was a good idea, I hate you. You guys are freaks. It's a terrible idea. For reference, I haven't actually gambled on this game. But for the person that for the people who put, I believe when I saw it, it was 1 million points, 1 million channel points into Invictus. I need to update myself what the number even is now. But you guys could be headed for a fall. Be ready. Get ready to mortgage your houses. Get ready to sell your kids or your wives or your husbands or whatever to recuperate that money. Because Elysium have made a dent in this series. They have put themselves on match point right now. This is incredible gameplay. And I just want the analysts to break something down and make something out of the matchup that we've just seen. So over to you guys.
Well, I'll tell you what, we saw that first trial, and we saw the Legion be able to be quite impressive. And I was thinking, you know what, maybe I was underrating the Legion. And then this last trial, quite the inverse there. MetalBro, what do you think was the big difference that we saw from trial 7 to trial 8?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. In the previous match, Zeno was using Feral Frenzy for distance everywhere. And that just wasn't really happening with Pedro on Legion. I'm not saying that's like the meta strat or anything, but it really helped out Zeno quite a bit in the in the first match of the set. And Pedro not really using it very much. I think I only saw him do it once or twice the entire time. It just kind of, that really felt like a pretty big break in the mold here for what really went right for Zeno and wrong for Pedro. Another thing that I noticed too is a huge change in the build. We saw Bamboozle being used and the Scratch Ruler. And also, the casters pointed it out very, very well as well. The fact that one survivor would get injured with Feral Frenzy and no one else would be around. It was just really, really impeccable spacing by the survivors of Elysium, just trying to stay as far away as possible. That way, every single chase that Pedro took would just not really have very many upsides to it. It was so incredible by Elysium.
Definitely a great performance from them. I mean, to be able to go up 3-1 over Invictus, I mean, showing that the Giant does indeed bleed. I'm kind of curious, though. We'd mentioned earlier, yeah, we've seen some niche picks come out, but Legion in a grand final. Before we move on, we've got to talk about it just in the sense of Zach, like, do you feel this was a ace up the sleeve, part of the reason why we haven't seen it thus far in the season so far from Elysium, or what was the big change to cause such a unique killer to be brought out here?
Yeah, it's interesting. We talk about like sort of unseen sets, like Singularity being a rare one, especially Legion. I mean, Legion's a very rare pick. I mean, we basically never see him. But I honestly think that Elysium really do like to pick weird stuff. I think that it's more of a way to throw Invictus off, maybe something that they're not used to practicing, or especially on the killer side. Maybe Pedro's not too comfortable on Legion. I know we do have too much time. We'll be loading in soon, but yeah, I think that essentially, like, Xeno had a killer strategy that he just employed like really, really well. And I feel like the Invictus side is just more of a standard Legion set. So I think it's just a preparation thing for me. Like, Elysium just seemed way more prepared on these, like the Myers set and the Legion set that they clearly have practiced, and Invictus weren't ready for, pretty much. A few Legion buffs recently as well, which also just kind of adds to his power and stuff. What, when he cancels his power, he's got a lot less cooldown now. Which also just helps him, especially with the zoning tactic that's used. But yeah, definitely excited to see what we'll do in the Spirit set. But yeah, Legion, definitely Elysium's territory.
Well, we've seen it once. We've seen it before. I'm sure we'll see it again for sure when it comes to DBDLeague. It is indeed not over till it's over. But there's only one thing that's guaranteed at this point in our best of 7, and that's set number 5. We're off to the Grim Pantry here to hang out with my homie Ren, the Spirit, to see how our teams are able to handle things on the survivor side. So let's go ahead and send it back off to our casters as we take another trip into the fog.
The Spirit, yeah, for Invictus, at least it surprised me that Invictus came out with the Spirit, because back in the old days, I remember that Babbo was the specialist there on the Spirit, and he's, as we have seen earlier, is now on Ariandel. So Pedro must have really stepped up and brings out the Dragon's Grip even. Again, one of the most controversial perks, but I can see the vision there. You really can make it quickly back towards the survivor that is touching a gen. You can later on kind of hold down an area with a little bit of extra pressure. So I definitely understand the idea that they had when handing in the perk builds. Pedro phasing over towards the shack. Survivors nowhere to be found, keeping it safe here. And they will potentially just touch the surprise in a second here, which would be crazy if that's going to be Dragon Script value this early into the trial. That would be kind of wild.
Yeah, it's something, it's going to force people off generators when people know about it anyway, but immediately off the rip, no one knows. Pedro's on the other side of the map, however. So if anyone does tap that gen and get exposed, it's not going to be worth a whole lot, and it's not going to happen anyway. Seems like the survivors are opting to stealth right now, which is this is an interesting map to do it, but I do see the vision. It does make some amount of sense here. So it's a very slow early game. Pedro can't really find anything. This also means that it's going to be a slow survivor early game. So even if we don't see a very fast first down, I wouldn't be too worried about that. I wouldn't be too worried if you're Pedro. It just means that everyone has had a bit of a gentleman's agreement to delay the start of the game until the corrupted generators are back online. Because once they are, that actually allows the survivors to spread themselves out a little bit. They do not want to be clumped up against a Legion. Sorry, not a Legion, a Spirit. I'm still so confused from the Legion set that we had earlier. The fact that that happened is crazy. Marco right now is not injured. That's your window of opportunity to actually buy some time against a Spirit, but bought enough time so that Pedro considers the leaving and going over to the generators. Now, you have seen someone leave here. You're seeing their scratch marks. You're seeing roughly where they're going. The swing is good, but the power drop even better. Xeno able to hold on uninjured for just a while longer. That is exactly what you want. You just want to play very patient. You want to play your distance against the killer. Play cautious. Leave as soon as possible. Make sure that she doesn't find you. And for the love of God, and for the love of all that is holy, make sure that she does not hit you. Because honestly, moment that you're hit by a Spirit, you're just dead meat.
And yeah, Pedro struggling with this insane coordination of Elysium. It's almost like they are playing on a different pantry than Pedro does. They are gone. Whenever he's trying to face over and whenever there is pressure coming up, they are just basically uninstalling the game, it feels like. Crazy work from the survivors here. No pressure possible, no injuries possible. Absolute insane work by the Elysium survivors. And you might try as a killer to calm yourself down saying, well, luckily it's still 5 generators. That's not the case anymore in a few seconds, because these generators have been individually worked on. So a lot of them will be popped in the next 1 or 2 minutes here. Pedro needs it down. We need to make sure that we throw some survivors onto a hook, that we start this pressure cycle of unhooking each other, taking care of one another. And I don't see that happening soon if they play this palette correctly here.
That stun's a big deal. Dragon's Grip is going to be procced on this gen on the other side of the map, so Oscar has to be very patient right now. But I think someone has called out Spirit's not actually committing to this and actually has eyes on him anyway, so not going to be too vulnerable for the time being. Here's the problem. Spirit has the record, is the fastest average down. Yes, even faster than the Nurse by 1 second. Average first down for Spirit is 1 minute and 7 seconds. And this one in the corner onto Pedro is going to be delayed even more and more. Possibly as long as this Poglog ends up remaining intact. It's going to force Pedro to go into the power. Now, against an injured survivor, the loudest footsteps possible on this map, you should eventually get that down. But for an average first down on Spirit of 1 minute and 7 seconds, that is 4:52. The slowest Spirit down, not just in Season X, but that we have ever seen in DBDLeague history. And this is in the finals. You cannot afford to be breaking the records that you want to break are, the winners of the $20,000 tournament, the biggest season ever. You do not want to break the slowest Spirit down ever record if you're Invictus. You need to bring something back. You need to bring it back now.
Yeah, that is a crazy timer. Almost a 5-minute mark on a Spirit here. So this is just indicating that Elysium is unstoppable right now, and their strategy from the Shade over the Legion really worked out, and it gave them so much momentum that they can even steal the Invictus sets potentially. And this is what we need now. Pedro with the wonderful, basically 2-tap here with the Spirit. Injury, confident phase afterwards. Almost instant down onto Marco. This is great. Keep it up, Invictus, because this is the road back into fighting from eye to eye, basically, because right now Elysium is really a higher level, if you ask me. They are in this difficult momentum and they do not intend to slow it down at all. Generator in the distance together with the reset onto Pedro there as well. Marco being rescued, not ending in a trade either. I feel like a lot of things are not working. Yeah, even this is being predicted. Even this is. I feel so bad for Pedro, but I feel like right now the luck is really not on Invictus' side.
Yeah, like this is beggars belief because something else that I want to draw attention to: Invictus have not played a single spirit set throughout Season X. Now, granted, we've seen some shenanigans in this final. No one expected a Legion, a Myers. Like, okay, sure, that's not stuff that people have experience on. But it is a bold move for such a specialist killer, for such a high tier, like requires hundreds of hours, thousands of hours of practice to get comp ready at, to then just go blind into this set, having never played it once. On the other side, Elysium have played this twice. Now, they did lose to Ariandel, but of course that was against Bubbo on the Spirit set, which is... It's a pretty uphill battle at the worst of times, let's be honest with ourselves. But Invictus, they made a risky decision to try and fight this Spirit set. So far, it is a risk which just has not paid off in the slightest right now. Zeno looks like he's very close to healing up. Marco is being chased, and obviously the injured survivor always has a distinct disadvantage against the Spirit. There's no way of masking the audio, your grunts of pain, your blood, the scratch marks, all manner of things which are going in your favor. Fourth generator going to be popped by Pedro here. Also, note that earlier, there was at least a 3-gen setup by the Shack. However, that was broken by the survivors as well. Pedro obviously has the deja vu and can scout out those 3-gens, so very good heads-up play. There is no 3-gen for Pedro to play around. There is no crazy slowdown for Pedro to play around. I don't even think that until Marco gets unhooked, there's no one even dead on hook.
Yeah, because Elysium simply just doesn't allow any pressure onto them. They don't make any mistakes. And pretty often we talk about it, right? As a killer, you sometimes require a few mistakes on the survivor side, at least for the comeback. And when you have an early game with 4-minute 52, which is out of this world, you need a survivor team with mistakes in order to come back from this. If they don't hand that to you, you will have a difficult time. And Zeno is an example like this. You do not even have 60 seconds until the elimination there. The final generator already coming through. Even if Zeno dies, ladies and gentlemen, even then, we only talk about 6 stages on the Spirit. 6. And this already assumes that Zeno will die on hook and isn't rescued. How devastating, especially in the final set for today.
Did Pedro just like disappear? Oh no, Oscar, sorry. Did Oscar just disappear? Like right in front of Pedro's eyes? That's crazy. And he's still not been found. He has the sprint burst. Both these gates are going to be opened. I do wonder if the survivors risk the unhook here, but to be honest, they have no reason to. On average, Spirit 4Ks 2/3 of the time. Getting out puts you massively ahead of the game. 6 hook stages simply is not going to be enough for Invictus here. We know they're the best survivors in the world, but they have to prove it. They have to not just beat their own odds, but beat everyone else's odds. This is ridiculous from Elysium. They are so locked in. They want this win so freakishly badly, and you can tell by the way they're playing on their survivor side. Just a masterclass all around. We're going to send it over to the analysts who can break down that game, and we're close to seeing Elysium defy what everyone's predictions. And as it's weird to call Elysium underdogs, but as the underdogs in this set go 1-up over the weekend.
The stage has been set here for Elysium to be able to pull off the gentleman's sweep after conceding set number 1 here today. And I'll tell you what, man, I mean, an almost 5-minute run to start off a trial is one way to break someone's spirit. I'm kind of curious though. We talked about how long it took. For almost 5 minutes we saw. It almost felt like we threw it back to old school DBD, where everyone stealthing things out and not taking any huge risks. I mean, Zach, do you like what happened in the beginning of the trial? I mean, masterclass or just what happened? What happened?
Yeah, it's definitely a patient performance early game. We had the corrupt intervention, and Spirit's one of those killers where she can struggle in the 4v1, but she really does excel at like getting that elimination, which is pretty typical of what a Spirit player would want. We are on the Grim Pantry, so it's a bit of a different map. So I think that it's one of those maps where the stealthing was a bit more rewarded because it's, there's a lot of long grass, there's a lot of edge map tiles that they can hide on and things. And I'm thinking that, like delaying that early game and not really giving Pedro anything to work with definitely set them up for success going into the mid game. He did eventually get a bit of momentum. We did also see the gem progress kind of suffer a little bit, sort of in response to that stealthing. But Elysium kind of just dug their nails in and managed to really like snowball that strong early start.
Yeah, early on, maybe not being able to build up a bunch of pressure on the gens, but boy, once they got going, it just seemed like there was no answer, no way to stop Elysium's survivor. What did you see that really allowed for our survivors at the back end of this trial, MetalBro, to be able to carry this thing over the finish line?
Q, when you asked me earlier about my prediction and I said I'm going to have a little bit of faith in Elysium, man, was I not expecting this. This is incredible work. I am going to double down on the fact that I think that this is some of the best performance that we have ever seen out of Elysium. This is incredible. I mean, magical work from Elysium. There's no better way to put this. I don't even think there's words invented yet for how Elysium is performing. This is just beyond any expectations. But yes, the early game definitely hit Pedro hard. The gen pressure definitely did kind of feel a bit lackluster in the early game, but in the mid to late game, things really changed up. The survivor plays were just completely flawless. I mean, they were taking really strong chases. The perks really helped out our Elysium survivors here. And then on top of that, I mean, we just had some really strong macro play from our survivors here. And even the micro plays were just so incredible.
Well, if we look back to the first set of the day, we had talked about how Elysium survivors had done a pretty darn good job in trial number 1, but eventually it would be the survivors from Invictus that would be able to bounce back and actually take that series. That set, I'm sorry, my goodness, it's been a long day. If we see this series go past set number 5, they are going to have to do the same thing here. We could potentially be looking at our last set on the day. So for potentially one last time on this beautiful Saturday, let's take a trip back into the fog.
Thank you guys for the insight there. And it is indeed the trial of today. Will Elysium just walk away with a 4-1 and pushing Invictus into a very, very difficult situation with a lot of pressure on their shoulders when we return tomorrow for the second best of 7 of the grand final? Keep in mind, everyone, you have to... a little bit of a greeting being sent there. Keep in mind, everyone, you have to win 2 out of these matches. So best of 7 today, best of 7 tomorrow would be enough. If that's not happening and we have a tie, we meet up next Saturday for a best of 9. So much content waiting for us, potentially. Obi, though, he wants to make sure that it's time to rest and that they can set up for tomorrow. Little bit of a spoiler. The teams could not go for repetition on the killers. So we might see Elysium not being with their secret picks anymore tomorrow. But Obi, definitely with the same struggle as Invictus at the beginning. No injury yet and difficult to get a grasp of pressure.
Maybe it shows the kind of hidden amount of agency that survivors have against the Spirit, where often we think that this is a set just dominated by the Spirit, but it turns out that the survivors stealthing in the early game, being able to catch up to get these hits, being able to completely juke the killer in that kind of manner is exactly what they need. And Invictus, they're back there against the wall, but haven't stopped them in the past. Finally, the injury comes onto Spitz. This cuts down your lifespan by about, I don't know, like 1,000,000%. there's no way of kind of relieving this amount of pressure onto you. You're going to be found at this pallet, and recall that until the power is up, Obi cannot really do anything about it. Spit's going to go downstairs, look for this pallet instead to work with. Now Obi has the power. It's locked and loaded and ready to go. In a situation like this, I wonder exactly how it's going to be played. No respect for the pallet, no respect for Spitz right there. Obi going to get the first down. Now, even by Spirit standards, that was still pretty slow. 220. But by Invictus standards, that is very fast. That comes out about 3 minutes ahead of Invictus's first down. We said in last set that we wouldn't be worried about, I don't know, maybe 13, 15 seconds. 3 minutes of downtime, I would not just be worried about, I would be absolutely aghast.
Yeah, right. 3 minutes already sounds pretty strong. But in the context of what we have seen in the previous trial, it is unfortunately something to be scared about. Because that's 2 minutes, and Dan the man taking the very unfortunate injury over that little tile there. Obi on a streak, going for the win, and that's Dan being down right here. Yeah, if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work, and then it only adds more and more problems, unfortunately. Dan on the hook here. Nightlight with a 60% generator, doing a good job keeping up the pressure, and that's what Invictus needs, right? Every single second that they still receive needs to be put into the objectives. They are doing that, so from the survivor perspective, they do exactly what's needed here, but the mid-game chases, those need to win some time back.
Obi is on demon time right now. This is crazy performance. Like, you learn something new every day watching this game. I knew that you could get hits at like some of the tiles on, say, Dead Dog. I did not know that you could hit over that pallet. That's absolutely crazy work. Teaching us all lessons in Spirit gameplay. I'm sure that your matches as Survivor on the Grim Pantry in the future are going to be far more miserable for that one. So, thanks, I guess. Interestingly, though, Spirit's not actually found anyone, and there are 3 survivors now split on the generators. I think. Oh, okay, I see what's happening. Yeah. Now this makes sense. With having so much pressure so early, the fact that not even a single generator is done by this second hook, you can afford to just camp Dan all the way to second stage. I think after second stage, we are gonna see our killer maneuver around the map just a little bit. So you're able to get one kind of consolation gen for survivors, but Obi right now is still hunting, still feeling pretty demonic right now. Guy is proving to be somewhat of a freak of nature thus far.
Yeah, and Invictus trying now to play the advantage of this map, right? You can really drag the killer away and increase the distances, but we need to get a rescue onto Dan here. Survivor team progressing 3 individual generators at the same time. This is very important because especially when the killer has established some sort of pressure, you want to make sure that he doesn't have this one target afterwards that he can force into regression and then do a lot of damage. But we might see Dan being in a problematic situation. I hope that Keksu is rotating in and at least takes the trade here, because we need that time from that rescue, from that trade potentially. Dan trying to
the body blocks,
and yeah, now finally that was the last millisecond, ladies and gentlemen. That's going to be the down right here, the unbreakable. Nice plan also with the perks there. Intention was that he immediately follows Dan and then he can pick up themselves, but Obi kind of prepared for that, so takes the extra seconds, but that obviously allows Dan to make a little bit of a head start and get some distance. But this chase here needs to be absolutely on point.
Yes, Dan needs to have the chase of about not just 1 lifetime, but 10 possibly right here. And this isn't the Invictus. This pallet it's not your day on this pallet, my friends. It just isn't. Someone was actually positioned there, even in these, you know, even in these awful situations, in these predicaments, you can see how on point their teamwork is. Nightlight was actually there, having rotated down to try and get the pallet save, but it was just a little bit too slow. You have to respect Invictus, even in these trying times, to go for such clutch plays. But Dan is dead. That is awful for you. I don't see a world in which Invictus can recover from this.
Yeah, what we need is the comeback chase, basically, right? And luckily, Invictus is known to be such a team that can pull incredible chases out of nowhere. And I think 2 generators is something that is still somewhat doable, especially on a map like this on Grim Pantry. You can leave early, you can force the killer into following you for a very long time, increase the distance, make it difficult to come back and take the pressure across the entire team. So I have a little bit of trust here. Not because in the darkness I fall asleep with the nightlight, but nightlight needs to guide us out of the darkness, basically. And we need some incredible Invictus times, basically. The good old times when we said Eternal doing Eternal things. This is what we need right now. And Spitz is a man for chases like this. We remember the insane Z-Wall chase from the past. Spitz, it is time to deliver. Spitz, it is time to juke the killer. He's doing exactly that. Obi losing time here. And we're on the main building. That is far away from at least 2 generators that are over there next to this little, let's call it, alternative shack. He's going down in the pallet, and that tells us there's a plan set up around us. We might see a pallet save. Nightlight was ready, but now it might fall apart here.
Yeah, they set Nightlight up for the pallet save, but I think that light is about to be snuffed out here. 1 hook onto Nightlight is going to secure the win. It's going to make a statement for Elysium right now. Nightlight has to play these tiles so carefully. We know that Obi is on demon time on some of these tiles right here. Going to have to play very carefully right now. Obi waits for the power to come back. It's a true 50-50 here, and it's one that Nightlight's going to lose. Going to be picked up soon, barring some kind of divine intervention, is going to be placed on the hook. And make no mistake, this was never meant to be Elysium's day. This was never meant to be Elysium's title, but they don't care. They're just going to take it anyway.
This is crazy. And there is Kexo, and there's the final chase. Ladies and gentlemen, it does look like a 1-0 for Team Elysium here. The pressure is on Invictus tomorrow for the best of 7, and in case Invictus wins tomorrow's best of 7, we will go into a best of 9 the following weekend. Crazy. If you look at the community votes, if you look at what people predicted, Invictus was the clear favorite for this, and it turned out to be the opposite. How much did the Legion, that's a BM, an unintentional BM, but yeah, well done by Kexo, forcing the aggression into Nightlight there. But yeah, like, obviously the Legion and the Shape played a huge role today. These unexpected sets made the difference for Elysium, but it is a crazy result. And also that we talk about a 4-1 actor. Not a 4-3 or 4-2, a 4-1. They lost 1 set and then back-to-back slammed these sets out. Crazy Elysium work.
They have lit the finals up well and truly. I mean, like, we can't even call them underdogs anymore, right? Because that is a statement win. This weekend was supposed to be a kind of weekend off for Invictus. It was supposed to be $7,500 wired directly into their account, but that is not going to be happening, unfortunately. Congratulations to Elysium, who have opened up this weekend with a 1-0 win. Now, as a reminder, they are not officially your Season X champions just yet. They have gone 1-up in a best of 3 sets kind of series, which is going to be played with set 2 happening tomorrow at 6:30, I believe, Central European time, and the 3rd set, if necessary, being played next Saturday They're not the champions yet, but they are damn sure close. Elysium have not just won today, they have announced themselves as official title contenders.